Chapter 160. Appearance of a Class 5 magical beast. Jian Chen instantly grew serious as he heard the abrupt heaven-shaking roar. Looking in the direction of the yell, he thought to himself, for a simple roar to have such an intense effect, this must be a peak Class 4 magical beast. Just as Jian Chen had this thought, a terrifyingly strong wave of energy made its way over to him. This wave of energy was so strong that it could be seen by the naked eye as it spread throughout the air and caused havoc. Many of the ancient tall trees were slowly drawn toward the source of energy as it overwhelmed anything in the sky. Jian Chen grew even more solemn as he felt this extreme change in atmosphere. He was originally shocked by the wave of energy coming at him, but now he was stunned and couldn't help but say, with this power, it might as well be a Class 5 magical beast. The spread of the wave of energy was exceedingly fast. In a split second it had reached where Jian Chen stood, but in that moment, the energy had begun to wane in power before becoming nothing more than a strong whistle through his ears as it passed. Jian Chen's clothes were blown slightly along with his long black hair which began to drift in the wind. The angry roar of the magical beast continued to be heard throughout the area with an explosive sound. The wave of energy simultaneously continued to wreak havoc on the ground by shaking it. Jian Chen's face grew serious as he heard two different roars. His eyes revealed a small amount of surprise as he muttered, "It seems that there's two Class 5 magical beasts fighting each other." Jian Chen then immediately ran in the direction of the roars. Following the aftermath of the damage from the energy wave, Jian Chen quickly traveled toward where the fight was taking place. 500 meters ahead of Jian Chen were two Class 5 magical beasts fighting intensely against each other. Each and every time they clashed, a strong wave of energy surged out in all directions. Even the ground had started to be filled with holes as the two magical beasts fought each other, the craters being a few meters deep. Nearby trees were uprooted and thrown about, and some were even sent flying far into the sky, with the tall grass becoming nothing more than a fine powder. Hiding 500 meters away to avoid being spotted by the two Class 5 magical beasts, Jian Chen stood in a bush and watched the beasts fight with an attentive eye. Although the two magical beasts were moving at rapid speeds, Jian Chen could clearly see the minute details of their fight. Between the two magical beasts fighting, one had a color as dark as the night and a body the same size of a cow. However, on the back of its shoulders was a pair of equally dark wings. On the other side was a tiny but snowy white dog-like magical beast. Although the two magical beasts were completely different sizes, the intensity in which they were fighting at was the same. Ho! Ho! The angry snarls continuously flowed from their mouths like a bullet of energy that rippled through the air. As soon as the roars left the magical beasts' mouths, the air shook with the vibrations and caused every other sound in the area to be drowned out. This is truly the strength of a Class 5 magical beast, Jian Chen remarked as he observed the two magical beasts battle. His entire body stood firmly in place despite the ground shaking beneath him. He was, however, afraid of gaining the attention of the two magical beasts and inviting unwanted trouble. Despite Jian Chen's current strength of a peak Saint Master and being unafraid of any peak Class 4 magical beast, Jian Chen was not completely confident that he could run away from the two Class 5 magical beasts after this display of strength. Although a Class 5 magical beast only had a single level difference with a Class 4 magical beast, in between this gap was like the gap separating the heavens and the earth. The two magical beasts continued to fight for over half the day before their snarls finally began to weaken. By this point in time, the two had scars and wounds all over their bodies and were barely capable of standing up. Their bellies were moving up and down as they tried to breathe in a frantic manner. Seeing such a miserable scene, Jian Chen couldn't help but think to himself, judging by this, both sides are already at a disadvantageous stalemate. They don't even have the energy to stand and are completely exhausted. Jian Chen suddenly felt a surge of confidence. Even the blood within him seemed to boil in anticipation as his heart began to palpitate. Jian Chen lay on the ground with a small look of hesitation adorning his face. Debating furiously with himself, he finally came to a conclusion. Biting his lip, he stood up onto the ground and quickly made it over to where the magical beasts were. Ho! The two magical beasts finally realized that Jian Chen was rapidly approaching, and so they let out one more angry roar. Their eyes flashed dangerously at Jian Chen, but other than that, they couldn't do anything else. Just as he got within 100 meters of the two, Jian Chen suddenly stopped as his face grew unnaturally serious. Even though the magical beasts in front of him were injured, that didn't make Jian Chen any less cautious. Slowly walking forward, Jian Chen advanced one step at a time towards the two Class 5 magical beasts. At the same time, The light wind sword appeared within his hand with a hazy glow surrounding the blade as if swallowing it. Ho! Class 5 magical beasts all had a good amount of intelligence. They had long since realized what Jian Chen was trying to do. With another threatening roar at Jian Chen, they warned him to not get any closer. Jian Chen paid no heed to the angry roars of the magical beasts and carefully approached closer and closer to them. At the same time, Jian Chen had wanted to charge at the magical beasts to kill them, but for the sake of his own health, he had to be more cautious. After all, these were Class 5 magical beasts, not Class 4 magical beasts. Chapter 161. Battling the Class 5 magical beast. Seeing how Jian Chen continued to get closer, the two tired Class 5 magical beasts grew even more frantic. If they were at their peak conditions, then they naturally wouldn't put a peak Saint Master within their notice, but at this moment they were at anything but their peak condition. After such a furious battle, the two were clearly very injured and could do nothing. Even their inner energy had been completely used up. In such a state, a Saint Master, or even a great saint would be able to come up to them and kill them. The two magical beasts struggled for a moment, seemingly trying to stand. However, despite their efforts, they weren't able to even accomplish this extremely simple task. With this pitiful display, the heart that was struggling to leap out of Jian Chen's throat finally began to calm down a little. However, he still continued to maintain a great amount of vigilance just in case something else happened. Continuing to walk closer and closer to the magical beasts, Jian Chen had quickly gotten within 30 meters of the two. Now that he was even closer, the amount of vigilance Jian Chen had increased greatly. Ho! At this moment, the snowy white-colored dog-like magical beast began to snarl once more. A large amount of energy gathered within its mouth before compressing to form a sphere of energy as the magical beast warned Jian Chen with its eyes. The other cow-like magical beast stared firmly at Jian Chen as the wings on its back began to shake with a fierce amount of energy emanating from it. Jian Chen's forward advancement began to falter as he sized up the two injured magical beasts with a critical eye. Seeing how the two were gathering energy, it felt as if they were ready to take action if he got any closer. Jian Chen had started to hesitate. Despite seeing how injured these two magical beasts were, they were still emitting a strong amount of pressure at him. Just faintly, Jian Chen could detect an extremely dangerous amount of qi radiating from the two Class 5 magical beasts. The two magical beasts and Jian Chen stared nervously at each other for a moment before Jian Chen's body suddenly swayed a moment and disappeared into a blur. He had quickly charged toward the snowy white dog-like magical beast with a large amount of saint force bursting out from within as he pushed his speed to its limits. The short 30 meters dividing him and the magical beasts had quickly become non-existent as Jian Chen flew over in a split second. Just as Jian Chen approached the dog-like magical beast, his right arm shook in a smooth movement as the light wind sword stabbed straight down at its belly with a sharp amount of sword qi enforcing the blow. Ho! The Class 5 magical beast wasn't slower than Jian Chen, and the moment he had reached it, the sphere of energy gathered within the magical beast's mouth was spat out at tremendous speeds toward Jian Chen's chest. At that moment, Jian Chen took back his sword and immediately dodged to the side with a tremendous amount of effort, causing the sphere of energy to fly towards the side of him. It was a shame that this sphere of energy was traveling far too fast. Despite Jian Chen's effort to dodge the sphere, he wasn't able to completely avoid taking damage. Originally the sphere had tried to slam against Jian Chen's chest, but since Jian Chen had moved his body, it had struck firmly against his left shoulder. Bang! The sphere of energy was only the size of a small fist, but the amount of energy it contained was terrifying. As a result of the sphere smashing against Jian Chen's left shoulder, his entire body was sent flying backward. After flying 10 meters into the air, Jian Chen crashed down onto the ground and rolled away painfully before slowly reaching a painful stop. His face began to shake and started to drain of blood as a fierce amount of pain could be felt coming from his left shoulder. Jian Chen's clothes around his shoulder had been completely shredded because of that sphere of energy. At the same time, the entire top part of his body was in agony as his left shoulder had become mutilated to the point where the bones could be seen and blood continued to flow from his wound freely. Jian Chen tried to resist the intense amount of pain from his left shoulder as even moving it had tormented him. Standing up painfully, Jian Chen's eyes swung toward that dog-like magical beast. After that magical beast had attacked, the expression it had wilted as its eyes dimmed in luster. It appeared that the attack it used had used up the last of its energy, so in its current condition, it was even more tired than before. Despite the attack having caused a serious amount of damage to Jian Chen, it had not impacted his movements all that much. With a small blur, Jian Chen had already moved toward the magical beast once more with the light wind sword out and ready to strike with its sword Qi. Kang! Just as the light wind sword lashed out, a white-colored blur slammed firmly against the blade of the light wind sword and caused it to divert from its original trajectory and stab into nothing but air. Immediately, Jian Chen looked at the blur, but he wasn't able to figure out what exactly had blocked his sword before feeling another source of pain on his chest. Dang dang dang. The fierce amount of attacks on Jian Chen caused him to stumble a few steps back as he felt a scorching pain on his chest. Tilting his head down, he saw that his chest had turned a very deep red and blood had started to leak from it. Forcibly swallowing the blood in his throat, Jian Chen looked at the Class 5 magical beast on the ground only to see the long tail of it swaying feebly behind it. It was this tail that had just attacked Jian Chen. Humph, I didn't think I'd come across such a strong resistance against these Class 5 magical beasts. But today I will definitely take your monster core. Jian Chen bit his lip before letting his light wind sword separate itself from his hand and fly toward the magical beast. Against such a swift sword Qi, the Class 5 magical beast was powerless to dodge and could only try and endure the incoming strike. The sword Qi accurately shot through one of the wounds of the magical beast, causing the entire body of the beast to tremble. There was no hesitation in Jian Chen's movements. Moving forward with his light wind sword, his weapon struck the beast in the throat. PC. This time the dog-like magical beast had already used up all of its energy to the point where even its tail wasn't able to be moved. The light wind sword met no obstruction as it stabbed deeply into the magical beast's throat. Then, the sword slid straight through the neck and then into the ground beneath it. Chapter 162. Smooth killing. Seeing the Class 5 magical beast finally take damage, Jian Chen let out a breath in relief. The strength of a Class 5 magical beast was indeed strong to where even a peak Class 4 magical beast was nothing more than an annoying ant to them. Against a heavily injured magical beast that couldn't even muster up the energy to stand, even Jian Chen had somehow sustained a grievous amount of damage. Just as Jian Chen let out a breath of air, an intense amount of energy suddenly came toward him. Jian Chen's face grew shocked as he immediately looked up only to see a meter-long crescent-shaped blade of wind come at him from the other magical beast's wings. This crescent-shaped blade of wind carried so much energy that it caused Jian Chen to become even more serious. Jian Chen's expression became grim as he rolled to the side without any further hesitation to dodge the blade of wind. The crescent-shaped wind flew by Jian Chen's hair, causing a few strands to fly away after being cut. The crescent continued on at an extremely fast speed that destroyed anything in its path without mercy. Finally it flew 100 meters into the ground, exploded with tremendous force, causing dirt and dust to be kicked up into the air. With his body violently moving in such a way that his left shoulder had smashed into the ground several times after rolling, the pain he felt surged through his body intensely and caused his nerves to be tormented. The skin continued to spasm as he grit his teeth in pain and tried to resist the sensations. Right now there was only one Class 5 magical beast left who was glaring angrily because Jian Chen had managed to only get away with an injury. Then, the cow-like magical beast with black fur began to gather up energy once more as the wings on its back began to emanate a sort of black glow. The amount of energy floating around the area quickly went from weak to strong. The energy near the wings was even stronger. However, the glint in the magical beast's eye grew even dimmer, and before long, it wasn't even able to muster up the energy to keep its eyes completely open anymore. Sensing the strong amount of energy come from the wings of the Class 5 magical beast, Jian Chen couldn't help but retreat a few steps backward with a heavy face in preparation to dodge the incoming attack. Ho! The magical beast roared with an extremely loud voice as if it was warning Jian Chen once more to not advance. He could see in the magical beast's eyes that it was in a completely weakened state. Yet the energy condensed on its wings was ready to fire like a drawn bow. This was the last opportunity for the magical beast to live. The energy within this attack was all that was left of the magical beast's supply. If this attack missed, the magical beast would be nothing more than a lamb to the slaughter. Jian Chen's legs took a few steps backward as he stared intensely at the magical beast with even more vigilance than ever. At this moment, the light wind sword abruptly flew from Jian Chen's hand high into the air toward the magical beast and then over it before turning around to strike at it from behind. Just as Jian Chen was about to make his move, the wings on the magical beast began to tremble as a huge crescent-shaped blade of wind blew toward Jian Chen. Jian Chen had already anticipated such a move, and when the magical beast shot out the crescent-shaped gust of wind, he rolled on the ground once more. Carefully making sure that his left shoulder wouldn't drag across the ground, he dodged the attack. Soon after it attacked with its wings, the magical beast looked as if it had lost every bit of energy it had. The bright colors in its eyes lost its luster and adopted a weary look. At the same time, the light-wind sword in the air began to tremble as it fell down with a tremendous amount of sword chi radiating from the entirety of its blade. Soon enough, the entire sword was wrapped within a light glow. Bathed within the white glow, the light-wind sword's blade couldn't be seen from the outside, making it seem very mysterious. Immediately following the sound of the sound barrier being broken, the light-wind sword flew toward the back of the magical beast with a tremendous speed. Kacha! The loud sound of a collision could be heard as the extremely sharp point of the light-wind sword broke through the skull of the magical beast and inserted itself deeply into its brain. Ho! The magical beast let out a miserable scream that rang through the air and even shook the eardrums of Jian Chen with its vibrations. The vibrations began to weaken after some time before disappearing completely along with the remaining light in the magical beast's pupils. Quickly, the eyelids of the magical beast closed off its eyes to the world. With some effort, Jian Chen crawled up from the ground unsteadily with a pale face as he looked at the light-wind sword that was impaled in the magical beast's skull. He couldn't help but have a victorious smile adorn his face at this fortunate sight. It finally died. The strength of a Class 5 magical beast is indeed strong. I didn't think 2 heavily injured Class 5 magical beasts would require so much effort to kill. It seems that the last encounter with the Golden Fur Tiger King wasn't the full extent of its strength. Jian Chen murmured weakly. Afterward, Jian Chen walked toward the cow-like magical beast and pulled out his sword from the head. Sitting down, he began to gather the radiant saint force within the world essence and condense it within his body. He wasn't in any serious rush to deal with the corpses of these 2 magical beasts. In the first place, his body wasn't in any condition to work with the carcasses. There was also the fact that there may be other magical beasts in the vicinity, so Jian Chen's first priority would be to quickly hurry up and heal himself. Since Jian Chen had broken through to become a peak saint master, his spirit had also increased as well. He could now control the radiant saint force for not only a longer amount of time, but also a larger quantity of it as well. This time, the wound on Jian Chen's shoulder was very serious. The intense energy that struck his shoulder had even fried some parts of his wound, so even with the radiant saint force, the wound would take some time to heal. After 4 hours, the milky white glow that surrounded Jian Chen gradually dissipated, revealing Jian Chen's body inside. His face was somewhat pale despite looking better than the condition he was in before. After using the radiant saint force to heal such a wound for 4 hours, he was rather exhausted, but at the very least, he wasn't feeling extremely drowsy like he used to feel. Using the radiant saint force for 4 hours had a very mysterious effect. The wound on his shoulder had already fully healed without even a single blemish showing on his skin. Chapter 163. Leaving the magical beast mountain range, Jian Chen slowly opened his eyes from his cross-legged meditation position. Turning his head to look at the wound that used to be there on his left shoulder, he raised a hand to gingerly touch the new skin over it. Feeling the skin without noticing any strange peculiarity with it, Jian Chen could only sigh in admiration of the effects of the radiant saint force. Jian Chen tore off his damaged clothing to reveal his blood-splattered body underneath. Then, using the pieces of clothing he had ripped off, he began to wipe away the blood. Slowly standing up, Jian Chen's eyes looked at the corpses of the 2 Class 5 magical beasts on the ground with a profound look. Based on the appearances, this snowy white magical beast must be the Quick Cloud Beast. The book said that the body of a Quick Cloud Beast was small, but was unnaturally nimble with fur that resembled the clouds above in the sky. And this other magical beast with wings on its back, this must be the magical Sky Wing Cow. The wings on its back can only be used to attack, and cannot be used to fly with. In a flash, Jian Chen had remembered the information he had seen back in Kargath Library to identify the corpses in front of him. The magical Sky Wing Cow's monster core is hidden underneath the wings, I'm sure, and the Quick Cloud Beast has it in its skull. The light wind sword appeared in Jian Chen's hands before it quickly stabbed into the body of the Quick Cloud Beast and dug around in its head. After some effort, the monster core of the Quick Cloud Beast was extracted, causing the dog-like magical beast, in the end, to resemble something grotesque. This Quick Cloud Beast was a Class 5 magical beast, but because of their species type and limited potential, their body was never able to grow past 2 meters unless they reached the Class 6 level. Because of this, even the monster core within their body was only the size of a walnut. After extracting the Quick Cloud Beast's monster core, Jian Chen moved onto the magical Sky Wing Cow and used his light wind sword to stab into the area below the wings for the monster core. Then with a great amount of effort, he finally extracted the monster core from its body. In contrast to the other monster core, this one was half the size of a fist. Jian Chen dried off the blood from both monster cores using the ripped-off pieces of his shirt before revealing two sparkling pieces of crystal-like items. Feeling the amount of energy hidden away within the monster cores, Jian Chen couldn't help but feel a little fearful inside. It was no wonder there was such a difference between a Class 5 and a Class 4 magical beast. Just looking at the monster cores, anyone could clearly tell the difference. In comparison to a Class 4 monster core, a Class 5 monster core had an extreme qualitative leap that would be incredibly difficult to try to make a comparison with. Also, despite the two monster cores coming from different magical beasts, the amount of energy contained inside was hardly any different. With just these two Class 5 monster cores alone, I suspect that they will last me a very long time as I cultivate with them. Grasping both Class 5 monster cores in his hand, Jian Chen couldn't help but feel happy. In his heart, this was nothing but good fortune. The happy mood continued for another small moment before becoming tranquil once more. Taking out his space belt, he placed both Class 5 monster cores and the corpses inside. The carcasses of a Class 5 monster core was very valuable, so Jian Chen couldn't abandon them like he did the Class 3 or Class 4 magical beasts. With these two carcasses alone, Jian Chen could sell them for a high price since any corpse of a Class 5 magical beast or higher was usually an object that had no standard price in any city. The reason was because the blood and meat of a magical beast of such a high class was good for the body when consumed. The high-quality meat of a magical beast could even increase one's strength or alter the body in a certain way. The bigger of the two magical beasts here was the magical sky wing cow, which was around 4 meters big. Meanwhile, the quick cloud beast was only a meter wide, so Jian Chen could just barely fit them both into his space belt. After storing away the two magical beasts into his space belt, Jian Chen took out another set of clean clothes and put it on. Although he hadn't left the magical beast mountain range in a long time, the amount of clothes he had taken from the other mercenaries wasn't lacking. After taking care of everything, Jian Chen immediately left the area. Although the fight between two Class 5 magical beasts had scared away all of the surrounding Class 4 magical beasts, he wasn't completely sure there were not other Class 5 magical beasts that might have wandered close by. If one more Class 5 magical beast came, Jian Chen wouldn't be able to fight against it at all. Even with his peak Saint Master strength, he didn't even have any confidence that he could run away from a Class 5 magical beast. Unless he were to come across a species that was particularly slow, otherwise he wouldn't have a chance to escape. In a flash, another half-month had gone by. In the depths of the magical beast mountain range, Jian Chen stabbed through the heart of a cyan-colored python and extracted its monster core. Then, he grabbed a handful of the grass below to wipe off the blood on it. This half-month I've only collected 10 Class 4 monster cores. For the sake of my cultivation, I should keep some just in case. For now, instead of trying to increase my strength, I should try to resolve any issues within my body. Otherwise, the berserk elements within the monster cores may cause some sort of issue. In any case, I should leave this area and take a look at the situation on the outside. Jian Chen cleaned off the rest of the blood on the fist-sized Class 4 monster core as he finished talking. Besides, I'm still carrying the final wishes of Kendall. I must find his family quickly. Leaving the magical beast mountain range, he traveled for another 2 days after passing through the forests and killing countless numbers of magical beasts and wild beasts before finally coming to a large grassland. Jian Chen didn't return to Wake City because Tianxiong Lai of the Tianxiong clan possessed an earth attribute Saint Force. With that Earth Saint Force, he held the superior defensive advantage over Jian Chen's nimble sword play. Not only that, but Tianxiong Lai's strength was also at the peak Great Saint Master, so until that man was dead, Jian Chen wouldn't want to carelessly walk back there. Also, with the Tianxiong clan being one of the hegemons in Wake City, they surely must have many personal connections despite their heavy losses in the magical beast mountain range. The moment Jian Chen came back, he may or may not come across another Great Saint Master, or even be encircled by multiple Great Saint Masters. Chapter 164. Group of Prairie Wolves. At this moment, there was a flash in Jian Chen's eyes before he suddenly stopped. Right in front of him, Jian Chen could detect the movements of something going through the grass. There was a cold glint in Jian Chen's eyes as he surveyed the patch of grass in front of him. His ears twitched as he continued to listen for the smallest sounds of movement in his surroundings. A look of disdain adorned Jian Chen's face as he flew in the direction that the noise of the movements was coming from. Within a few breaths, the sounds of movement could be heard even louder than before, to the point of being able to hear them even without paying attention. Plus, The shaking within the grass could be clearly seen now, almost as if the wind was blowing in a specific area. Suddenly, a countless number of shadows flew out from behind the tall grass. Jian Chen was very calm as he walked forward. In his right hand the light wind sword condensed into existence as he grabbed it. How? At this moment, the sound of a wolf could be heard as a blue-colored figure leaped out from the grass toward Jian Chen. Without even a sideways glance, Jian Chen shook his right arm slightly as the blue figure flew close by him. The light wind sword in his right hand became a streak of silver light as he walked past the flying creature. Just as the blue-colored figure leaped out at him, it abruptly fell to the ground. Looking down, all Jian Chen could see was a blue-colored wolf with a stream of blood leaking from its throat. Just as this wolf fell to the ground, a barrage of wolves flew out from the tall grass at Jian Chen. One of them opened its large jaw wide, causing the irony scent of blood to waft out and attack the nose to an unbearable degree. Still with a calm expression, Jian Chen continued to stab out with his sword at lightning-quick speed as he struck each incoming wolf fatally in the throat. These blue wolves were only at the class 1 to 2 level, so Jian Chen didn't feel threatened by them at all. From behind the cover of the tall grass, blue wolves continued to leap out as they charged at Jian Chen. However, Jian Chen's forward pace didn't falter even a single step as he brandished his weapon in a web of sword strokes. Each and every second his sword would swing out around him, and with each swing, another wolf was struck fatally. The amount of blue wolves hidden in the grass numbered within the thousands as they formed a circle around Jian Chen that was around 100 meters in circumference. Now that Jian Chen was firmly sealed in, the blue wolves could stalk quietly behind the tall grass. Yet while Jian Chen could easily kill a blue wolf, there was only 20 of them dead by his hands. Although he realized just how many blue wolves were around him, Jian Chen still didn't seem to take it seriously. Against a group of Class 1 or Class 2 magical beasts, Jian Chen could easily kill each of them in one strike without wasting any energy at all. Even if a group of mercenaries were to come across this pack of blue wolves, they would definitely have a headache after dealing with them, even if they had a great Saint Master with them. A Class 2 magical beast would have an extremely difficult time hurting a great Saint Master, but when there was 1,000 of them, they wouldn't just stand around and let you kill them, they would all come in for the kill. Within the prairie, these blue wolves were a very common sight, but after killing countless blue wolves, the light wind sword in Jian Chen's hands was almost like the scythe of the god of death, mercilessly reaping the lives of the magical beasts. Without exception, each and every wolf that leaped at Jian Chen had its throat stabbed mid-roar. Even in midair, they were unable to escape the rapidness that was Jian Chen's scythe-like sword. Behind Jian Chen, the massive amount of blood had already turned into a single line that splattered on top of the tall grass. As for the blue wolves' bodies, they were all neatly piled up on top of each other in a single line. Despite this indiscriminate slaughter by Jian Chen, the wolves leapt out from the tall grass one by one in an endless stream, almost as if they weren't afraid of injuries or death. In the eyes of any spectator, it was almost like Jian Chen was a hated enemy that they were ready to die for in order to kill. The blood of the blue wolves continued to splatter into the air as the light wind sword covered the sky with its blade, and after being mixed with blood, the shine of the sword was unmistakably distinguishable. Jian Chen's body didn't have any unnatural movements. From the start of this massacre to now, he had calmly continued on in a single line without the blue wolves being able to attack him from the front or back. Yet, they were also unable to stop his forward momentum. This massacre continued for another hour, and not too long after, Jian Chen had already killed several hundred blue wolves without a single speck of blood landing on his body. Ayo! At this moment, the fierce snarl of a wolf came from behind. It was a command for the wolves that immediately called each wolf in the front of the circle to retreat behind, leaving behind several hundred corpses without a single trace of their retreat. The pack of wolves had come quickly, but they had also left quickly. In the blink of an eye, not a single trace could be seen of the blue wolves, except for the blood of the hundreds of dead that left a single path on the ground. Seeing how the wolves had retreated, Jian Chen took back his light wind sword. Despite this extensive close-ranged combat, Jian Chen's face wasn't red, and neither was he breathing hard. The rumor said that the magical beasts in the prairie were unnaturally vicious. It would seem that this rumor is true. Each wolf came at me with no regards for its life or any fear either, Jian Chen thought to himself. Even after that ordeal, Jian Chen's direction didn't change as he continued to walk down a single line. With all the corpses behind him, he didn't pay any attention to them since they were only Class 1 and Class 2 magical beasts. Despite the amount of bodies, a person of Jian Chen's strength didn't care for it since it wasn't worth the time spent harvesting and storing away the bodies. This was certainly not a task Jian Chen had wanted to waste time doing. The area of this grassland was expansive, so Jian Chen could walk for 2 days before he would finally reach the end of the area, which turned into a desolate piece of land. After walking for another 4 hours, he finally made his way to an official road where he could see the leftover marks of a carriage that had driven by. On the road, a small group of caravans were slowly advancing in the direction of Jian Chen. Chapter 165. Mysterious person. Looking at the group, Jian Chen could clearly distinguish their figures despite being thousands of meters away. That was because the group only had 10 caravans and personnel numbering around 40 men. Each one of them was sitting on a tall horse with a rather luxurious-looking caravan in the middle of the group. With Jian Chen's regular walking pace, he had quickly met up with the group of caravans. Each one of the mercenaries sitting on top of the horses stared sharply at Jian Chen. After a few of them looked over Jian Chen's figure, they each looked away from him as if they didn't care for him. Just as Jian Chen was about 5 meters away from the caravan group, the two sides suddenly stopped since Jian Chen's path was blocking their group from continuing forward. At this, the mercenaries that had glanced at Jian Chen from before no longer looked friendly. A few of them had already started to have a small amount of killing intent in their eyes. "Who are you, and why do you block our path?" An older man bellowed at Jian Chen. Not caring for the other man's temper, Jian Chen waved his hand and said, "Fellow travelers, this one has found himself lost, so this one wonders if some questions could be asked for a moment." Hearing this, many of the mercenaries furrowed their eyebrows. For mercenaries that traveled the continent, if they weren't familiar with the terrain, then many would bring a map with them. People like Jian Chen were not commonly seen, so the words spoken by Jian Chen couldn't be taken so easily. "Less of your fucking bull, hurry up and scram, otherwise don't blame this uncle for being impolite." One of the more violent mercenaries snarled out. This elder man stalked forward with his muscles rippling in a way that exploded into everyone's view while also seeing the short pants he was wearing. Jian Chen's face tilted down slightly as he looked coldly at the mercenary who spoke. "You better clean your mouth, or else you may find that all it'll take to lose your life would be one phrase." Hearing this mercenary's words, they had clearly annoyed Jian Chen. The words of Jian Chen said caused the color of the other mercenaries to drop a few shades. The one that had been looking at Jian Chen couldn't help but feel his heart tremble as if a sudden chill had descended over the area. At first the man had felt a bit cowardly, but the moment he had realized the one who was threatening him was only 20 years old, the cowardice within him turned to anger before a slightly low voice could be heard from behind him. "Fellow friend, the words you say are too much." From this voice, everyone turned to see a middle-aged man riding a black horse slowly approach them. The look on his face was a bit gloomy, but there was an icy tint to his eyes as he looked down at Jian Chen. "Captain Lon. Captain Lon." The moment this man emerged with his black horse, all of the surrounding mercenaries began to call out his name. Jian Chen looked at the man and said, "Before saying something like that, you should first discipline your subordinates." The big mercenary snorted and glared dangerously at Jian Chen. "How arrogant, you're nothing more than a boy who hasn't been taught by his mommy. To dare disrespect our captain, why don't I bring your mother here to help discipline you?" Leaping from his horse, he began to walk toward Jian Chen with his fist outstretched. Hearing this talk about his mother, Jian Chen's face suddenly changed as a tremendous spike of killing intent flowed from his eyes. Lifting up his left hand, he blocked the incoming slap from the older man and then immediately planted his right hand into his stomach. Kacha! Immediately the sound of bones could be heard breaking as Jian Chen's Saint Force-enhanced fist struck against the man's stomach. Straight away, a dent could be seen in his chest. Ah! With a miserable howl, the man's face was completely filled with a violent expression as his tanned face grew pale. Straight after, Jian Chen's figure disappeared in a blur as his leg planted itself against the man's chest once more with a biting cold gust of wind. The mercenary was sent flying high into the air before finally landing 10 meters away on the ground with a resounding bang. Dust was knocked up into the air as blood came spurting out of the man's mouth. His face, which was already very pale, had started to wither a bit. Seeing how that older mercenary was struggling to crawl up from the ground, the other mercenaries looked on in disbelief. With a stunned look as their only reaction, they slowly started to shout and pull out their saint weapons to charge at Jian Chen. "Stay your hand!" The one named Captain Lon suddenly called out from his black horse. In an instant he had instantly stopped every single mercenary from charging at Jian Chen. Captain Lon urged his horse forward as he looked at Jian Chen with a serious face. "Honored one, do you truly just wish for directions without any other motive?" Correct. Jian Chen nodded his head. Captain Lon, give this junior here a map. Just as Jian Chen finished talking, an elderly voice came from behind. While the voice was very elderly sounding, the air became rather imposing. Hearing that elderly voice, Jian Chen turned his head to look behind to see a small group of luxurious caravans make their way toward him. An expression of respect grew on Captain Lan's face as he cupped his hands in the direction of the caravans. Yes, elder. Seeing the display Captain Lan was showing, Jian Chen's eyes flickered slightly. Looking at the caravans, he could tell that there were indeed people in the caravans, but because of the distance, he wasn't able to gauge their exact strength. Then, Captain Lan took out a rolled-up piece of parchment from his space belt and threw it at Jian Chen. This is the map of the Blue Wind Kingdom, take it. Jian Chen unraveled the parchment and took a brief glance on it before rolling it back together. Cupping his hands, he left the area without any further words. Watching Jian Chen's body grow even more distant, Captain Lan cried out, "Forward!" After picking up the mercenary that had been struck down by Jian Chen and placing him on a horse, the group began to continue on with their path. Jian Chen continued to watch the caravan fade away from the side for a while. He knew that the man leading the caravans was a peak great saint master, so to have such a man have a respectful tone, Jian Chen was truly curious about the man inside the caravans. The only thing he could sense within the caravans was merely the breathing of a person. Other than that, there was nothing. Haha, youngster, for a youth to possess a strength like yours, that is not an easy task. Continue to work hard. I believe that not too far in the future, you will surely shake the continent. When Jian Chen had passed the caravans, he could faintly hear the elderly voice whisper into his ears almost as if the elder were standing right next to him. Jian Chen's face had changed slightly as he suddenly went rigid. Immediately looking around himself, he didn't see anyone around him. So he stared in disbelief at the caravan that had just passed by. He had just heard this elder's voice from inside the caravan. Even with the incredulous look on Jian Chen's face, the mercenaries that were guarding the caravans appeared to not have noticed the sound. Their faces had no difference than before Jian Chen had heard the sound. Youngster, if you can one day make it to the Holy Empire, then you can find me using this badge. At that moment, the elderly voice came back once more without the same mysterious tone. At the same time as the voice, a purple shining badge flew out from the window and into the hands of Jian Chen. The few mercenaries guarding the caravan suddenly turned to look at Jian Chen with a look of extreme envy, and at the object in his hand with some doubt. Seeing this purple metal that was shining in his hand, Jian Chen's heart began to feel as if waves were constantly crashing over him. It was at that moment that he had realized the mysterious figure sitting in this caravan was undoubtedly an unmeasurably deep expert. He hadn't expected to receive this medal, but he knew that this medal was definitely not something normal people could get. There was a strange feeling within Jian Chen's heart. For a person to be so strong in the caravan, why was it that the strongest person in his group was only a peak great saint master? The average strength in this group was only a great saint, with some that weren't even at that level. Also, to have so many goods being transported in the open like this, could it be this person didn't even have a space belt or space ring? Xueqi, as the caravans traveled further away, the clear sounds of a cough could be heard. Jian Chen looked at the caravan with his eyes, but his heart was not as tranquil as it usually was. Who? Jian Chen let out a long breath of air as he looked at the purple medal in his hands. This medal was only the size of his hand and was a finger wide and heavy to the touch. This medal was made entirely from purple coins, so there must have been a special way to refine and create this object. And since it was made from purple coins, the price of this item would be unnaturally high. The Holy City in the Holy Empire, that is one of the capital cities in the Tianyuan continent. It's also where the ruler of the Holy Empire resides. Just what identity does this mysterious man have? Jian Chen muttered. Chapter 166. Phoenix City. After meeting the mysterious person within the caravan, Jian Chen had some doubts. Judging from how that Captain Lan had so respectfully called out to the elder in the caravan, and that Jian Chen couldn't measure the elder's strength at all, the elder was definitely not a great saint master. Against great saint masters, Jian Chen could easily discern their cultivation levels, but when it came to this elder in particular, Jian Chen had no idea. It would appear that his strength is at the very least an earth saint master. But for what reason did he give me this badge? Jian Chen looked back to the purple coin-casted medal in his hand. This medal didn't have any words on it, but there were various patterns running through it. Forget it, there isn't any use to trying to figure this out. I'd best be on the road. Until I have enough strength, it would be best for me to wait until I go to the holy city. Jian Chen decided before storing the metal into his space ring and continuing on his way. The road was unusually peaceful. There were many times where he wouldn't see anyone. Yet sometimes during the day, many caravans and mercenaries would ride by on their magical beasts. Now that he had a map, Jian Chen was no longer worried about getting lost. In accordance to the map, Jian Chen had walked for 3 days and in the end, he finally reached Phoenix City. Phoenix City was a Class 2 city encompassing an area of several hundred kilometers. By the time he reached the outskirts, there was already a steady flow of people bustling around. A group of leather-wearing mercenaries rode on magical beasts of many sizes while other caravans slowly carried their goods on the road. All sorts of topics were being made as voices blended together. Jian Chen followed the road for the final stretch of land and slowly made his way past the city walls. Walking besides Jian Chen were other mercenaries that also traveled by themselves. So Jian Chen hadn't attracted any attention to himself. By the city gates of Phoenix City, there were many guards standing perfectly straight as they watched with a cold gaze those who entered the city. "Stand still, what are you doing?" At that moment, a cold voice cried out. Turning their heads to look, everyone could see a caravan group being stopped by a single city guard. Simultaneously, a short but plump man with embroidered clothing walked forward pretending to pull the guard's hand in a friendly manner as if he was a friend. Pleasantly stuffing a few gold coins into the cold hand of the guard, the man began to smile as he spoke a few words into his ear. The guard pinched the gold coins given to him by the man before rubbing them together with a serious face before it slowly melted away. Waving his hand with a happier expression, he cried out, "You may enter." Practically every merchant that was blocked by the guards would end up having to pay a small fee to enter. This was an extremely common practice on the Tianyuan continent, but there were a few merchants that had refused to pay this toll. Of course, the guards would use the pretense of feigning that there were dangerous goods within their caravans and would not allow them to enter before forcing a search on them. This rudeness had made many people unsatisfied, but because these guards were still the garrison soldiers of the city, many people were unable to do anything about them. In the face of these guards, even some of the more violent mercenaries would only be able to suck up their anger. Jian Chen had however been able to enter Phoenix City without paying the tax. To the guards, Jian Chen was a lone traveler that wasn't escorting any sort of goods, so they didn't care about him. It was only for the merchants that they would obstruct a person's way. As a Class 2 city, Phoenix City was relatively huge, being bigger than Wake City by a large degree. As soon as Jian Chen had entered the city, he walked to the closest stable and bought himself a nice-looking horse to ride to the center of the city. Because of the wideness of the city, if one didn't have a horse to travel on, it would take over half the day to walk from the east to west gate of Phoenix City. After traveling on his horse for some time, he finally stopped at a bank. Tying up his horse, he entered the bank. Inside the bank, Jian Chen converted all of the copper, silver and gold coins on him into purple coins. Only a few of the coins were left unconverted for him to use for daily expenses. Most of the money he had converted came from his time in the magical Beast Mountain range where Jian Chen had taken all of the money from the dead mercenaries' bodies and space belts. Just before Jian Chen was about to put all of the coins back into his space belt, he had counted how many purple coins he had. Unexpectedly, there were around 30,000 purple coins, and added with the purple coins he already had on him, then he had a total of over 40,000 purple coins. Before he had left the bank, he had collected a purple card from the bank. This card was called the purple card by everyone on the Tianyuan continent. Purple cards were used by the entirety of the Tianyuan continent for those who wanted to save space from carrying so many purple coins. A purple card was like a space belt in that it had its own interdimensional space to hold coins, but it was used to measure the amount of purple coins. With a purple card, one would be able to freely visit any bank to access their money. Many higher institutes would even take the purple card as payment, so it was a lot more convenient than carrying around individual stacks of purple coins. The purple card was only half the size of Jian Chen's hand and was created through a special means of refinement. Although the card itself looked rather weak, it was actually very strong. Even Earth Saint Masters wouldn't be able to inflict damage to this card. Obtaining a purple card wasn't all that hard, but still not so easy that ordinary people could receive one. To obtain one, a person must have at least 10,000 purple coins. With a purple card, not only was it a symbol of one's identity, but also of one's wealth. 4 purple coins to be added into the purple card, it required the bank's special instrument, so ordinary men would have absolutely no way of tricking the system. However, the banks would only recognize the card and not the owner. Even if one were not the original owner, the purple card would still be usable by any bank in the Tianyuan continent. Walking out of the bank, Jian Chen held the purple card in his hand. It contained all 40,000 of his purple coins with barely any other coins left for him to use for his own personal interests. When the people in the bank had seen the purple card in Jian Chen's hands, they all looked at him with an envious expression, with many people already looking at him with other ideas. Jian Chen looked around himself at the people looking back at him and smiled. Placing the purple card in his space belt, Jian Chen mounted his horse and rode off. Chapter 167. Auction Affairs. Next, after asking around, Jian Chen arrived at a store that specialized in monster cores but was rather large. The building made of a blue stone material and had 3 stories. Although there were many mercenaries that sold monster cores, they were mainly low-leveled ones. The higher-leveled monster cores were less common to see, so if one really wanted to buy one, they would need to go to a store. The bigger the store, the higher quality the monster cores were. Plus, stores that sold monster cores had a huge supply in comparison to the mercenaries that only had 3 or 5 class 1 or 2 monster cores for sale. If some influential clans wanted to buy large quantities of monster cores, they would go to these stores to buy them. Entering the monster core shop, Jian Chen felt that despite being such a large store, there weren't many people inside. There weren't even any monster cores arranged out, with only a few female clerks that were working, but other than that, this place didn't seem like a monster core shop at all. With some confusion, Jian Chen walked toward them and asked, "Might I ask if this is where they sell monster cores?" Hearing this, the female clerk looked at Jian Chen's handsome and delicate face with an astonished face. Seeing such a handsome face like Jian Chen's had made her stop for a second before speaking up joyously. "Did you see the sign outside our store? If our Monster Core Heaven store didn't sell monster cores, then what place would this be?" Jian Chen let out an embarrassed smile as he looked at the empty halls. Then why is there not even a single monster core out on display? Perhaps it was because of Jian Chen's appearance that made him irresistible to women, but the clerk then stared blankly at him before explaining pleasantly. "Our Monster Core Heaven store only displays our higher-level monster cores out on the 2nd and 3rd floor. The 1st floor only has Class 1 monster cores, but since those are extremely common, there is no need to put them out on display." Hearing this, Jian Chen suddenly saw the light. This was only the 1st story of the store, but he hadn't realized that this was how the store functioned. The female clerk continued to say, "Which monster core did you want to buy? If you want to buy Class 1 monster cores, then just tell me how many you want to buy. But if you want to buy Class 2 monster cores, you'll have to head to the 2nd floor." Jian Chen hesitated for a moment before asking, "I'm not here to buy monster cores, but might I ask if you are buying monster cores instead?" The female clerk looked at Jian Chen with an astonished face. "What? You're selling monster cores?" "Correct." Jian Chen nodded. An incredulous look filled the clerk's eye as she stared at Jian Chen. She didn't know why such a handsome youth was trying to sell instead of buy monster cores. She had worked at this store for many years, but this was the very first time such a person came. Usually, it was always a group of burly men. She didn't look at Jian Chen with disdain despite this. Instead, she continued to speak with a sweet smile. "We also buy monster cores here, so if you please bring out the monster cores you want to sell." Jian Chen immediately took out 2 space belts and handed it over the female clerk. In these 2 space belts were Class 1 and 2 monster cores. The clerk took the 2 space belts and began to inspect the amount of monster cores inside. Quickly, a look of shock appeared on her face because the amount of Class 1 and 2 monster cores in the space belts numbered to around 2,000. This was the first time she had ever seen so many monster cores. Taking in a deep breath, the female clerk looked at Jian Chen's handsome face with a complex expression. "Please wait one moment, I will be right back with the shopkeeper." Handing the space belts back to Jian Chen, she turned around and headed toward the 2nd floor. Not too long after she had left, a man wearing an embroidered blue robe came down with the same female worker. "Shopkeeper Bai, this is the one that wants to sell monster cores," the female clerk said as she brought the shopkeeper to Jian Chen. The one named Shopkeeper Bai nodded his middle-aged head as he smiled at Jian Chen. "Junior, would it be possible for you to bring out the monster cores for me to see?" Jian Chen didn't hesitate in bringing out the space belts for Shopkeeper Bai to see. Extending his hand to inspect the contents of the space belt, Shopkeeper Bai's eyes suddenly widened in shock as well when he discovered the amount of monster cores within the space belts. To sell so many monster cores at once, this is something Phoenix City doesn't see often. The middle-aged man spoke as he studied Jian Chen. Junior, do you mind if I call you that? I hope you don't mind. Jian Chen smiled. Shopkeeper, why don't we talk about how much money you'd like to buy this for? That we can do. Please allow me to think it over for a moment. The man laughed. Without any more talk, he led Jian Chen into a secret room so they could go over the monster cores. Once the monster cores were all counted for, the middle-aged man had given Jian Chen a total of 5,000 purple coins. Taking the purple coins, Jian Chen thanked the shopkeeper and walked out of the building. Riding his horse to a crowded marketplace, he began to buy several sets of clothing and other essential items for surviving in the outside world. Just then, the loud clamoring of the crowd caught Jian Chen's attention. I've heard that the annual auction will be taking place in 10 days' time. This time there'll be many precious treasures. Yeah, this auction is a must this year. Who knows what treasures will be seen there? Phoenix City's Heavenly Phoenix auction is very famous. The annual auction usually always has many people from other cities participating, so it'll definitely be crowded. An auction. Jian Chen cried out to himself as he listened to the others talk. Now thinking about this, he no longer was in any desire to stroll around the area, and immediately went back onto the road to return to the center of Phoenix City to find the place everyone was talking about. The building was exceptionally tall. Despite being only 2 stories tall, it had already reached several dozen meters higher into the air than a 4-story inn nearby. Even the area it had covered was large as compared to the Mercenary Union, which was roughly the same size. On top of the great big gates to the auction house was a 3-meter-tall board that had the 4 words, Heavenly Phoenix Auction House, written in fancy calligraphy. There were many people coming in and out of the auction house as well. With a little hesitation, Jian Chen disembarked from his horse to enter the inn nearby the auction house to rent a room. After that he let the horse go. After a few days, Jian Chen strolled around before finding an isolated area, where he took out some herbs from his space belt. After the time it took to boil a cup of tea, Jian Chen stood back up with a completely different look. This time he looked more like a dark-skinned middle-aged man with relatively ordinary looks. If he were to blend into a crowd, no one would be able to remember his face other than the fact that there was a little scar on the left side of his face. After disguising himself, Jian Chen swapped out his clothes and then headed toward the Heavenly Phoenix auction house and then inside of it. After entering, he saw a steady stream of people walking in and out around him. By this time, the annual auction was about to start. So many people were already trying to register their own precious items for the auction. Sir, might I ask what item did you want to register? Just as Jian Chen had entered the auction house, a female worker had called out to him sweetly. Could you please bring out the official for this place? I have a few things to discuss with him. A deep voice came from Jian Chen's throat. He had even changed what he sounded like. Yes, please wait for a moment. The female worker studied Jian Chen before excusing herself from the area to walk further into the auction house. In a flash, a white-haired man wearing rich-looking clothes walked toward Jian Chen with the female worker right behind with a respectful face. Elder Huang. This is the person looking for you. The female spoke up before turning to Jian Chen. Sir, this is our Heavenly Phoenix auction house, high-leveled appraiser, Elder Huang. Jian Chen cupped his hands together as a greeting. His greeting was completely ignored by the elder, who instead looked at him and asked, "What business might you have?" Jian Chen's eyes swept around himself to look at the nearby people in the auction house before replying. Elder Huang, I have a few precious things that I would like to sell. Would Elder like to talk about them? Hearing the words of Jian Chen, the elder's eyes flashed before gesturing Jian Chen toward a secured room to talk. Jian Chen and the elder sat down on the opposite sides of a table. Although the room wasn't all that big, the soundproofing was very good in here, so their negotiation could be done freely without the worry of anyone from the outside listening in. Sir, you should have brought the item you wanted to auction off to Elder Xiao. When the two sat down, the elder couldn't help but say that. Haha, Elder Huang, I wanted to auction something, but it must remain confidential. Jian Chen laughed before taking his space belt out. Then you can rest easily. Our Heavenly Phoenix auction house is well respected among all cities and will not divulge even the smallest bit of information to anyone. The elder smiled before inspecting the space belt given to him. The moment the elder looked inside the space belt, his eyes suddenly froze along with his face as he looked at the contents with shock and disbelief. This is the body of a Class 5 magical beast. Chapter 168. Yulyan, seeing the shocked expression on the elder's face, Jian Chen smiled gently and said, "Indeed, Elder Huang has a good eye." The unexpected sight of a Class 5 magical beast's body had given the elder's heart a great big shock. But soon enough, he quickly brought his emotions under control. Taking a deep breath to calm himself, he looked back at Jian Chen with a completely different attitude. "Dear sir, do you really wish to auction off this Class 5 magical beast body?" The elder's eyes contained hope in them as he waited for Jian Chen's response. A Class 5 magical beast's body was especially precious as well as being especially hard to supply. In the history of the Class 2 Phoenix City, there were only 2 or 3 occurrences of a Class 5 magical beast body being sold in the last dozen years. Although each time it occurred, it had sent shockwaves to the nearby cities where all of the influential clans in the vicinity would begin to fight over it. If these 2 bodies were to be auctioned off in his Heavenly Phoenix auction house, his auction house would definitely earn a supremely high reputation. If that happened, then their auction house becoming the #1 auction house in this area of the empire would not be too far off as a dream. Seeing the nervous look on the elder's face, Jian Chen couldn't help but smile. "Correct, these 2 Class 5 magical beasts, I've come here to auction them. Will there be a problem with that?" The elder's face lit up as he hurriedly responded to Jian Chen. No, not at all. You may auction these bodies within our Heavenly Phoenix auction house. In fact, we would be honored to do so. However, dear sir, these 2 Class 5 magical beast bodies are very important and have far surpassed my authorization. Please wait a moment, and I will bring the manager of the Heavenly Phoenix auction house to come and discuss this matter with you. With that, the elder gave a polite salute to Jian Chen and left the room, causing it to become quiet once more, leaving Jian Chen as the sole person inside. Casually leaning back on his chair, Jian Chen tilted his head down as he began to think. Right now his mind was constantly thinking about just what type of trouble he could come across as a result of this. The body of a Class 5 magical beast was very precious. Within the Class 2 Phoenix City, this could be said to be extremely rare. Jian Chen himself knew that if he were to auction these 2 bodies, it would undoubtedly send shockwaves throughout this area. Thus trouble would undoubtedly come to him. Gotcha! Suddenly a sound could be heard as the door to the room was opened. Jian Chen tilted his head to look only to see a cyan-colored robe-wearing woman slowly walk in with refined steps. The moment she had walked in, a sweet fragrance had immediately wafted into the room. This woman was rather tall and looked to be around 30 years old. Her entire figure seemed to carry the unique temperament of a female with a beautiful face that held no argument. To some ordinary men, they would most likely not be able to resist her charm. Right behind her, her dark green-colored hair hung without any binding against her shoulders and back. Her black pupils seemed to shine with a mysterious light that seemed as if it could read a person's mind. Right behind this woman was the elder Huang, who had previously left the room, closing the door behind them. As Jian Chen studied the woman studied Jian Chen as she elegantly sat down opposite of Jian Chen. Her twin black eyes stared deeply at Jian Chen as if trying to understand him before she smiled and said, "I am called Yulyan, the one in charge of the Heavenly Phoenix auction house. Might this one know what to call you by?" Jian Chen cupped his hands in greeting. "This one is called Wu Yun, Miss Yulyan." Yulyan nodded her head and gave a small look at the nearby elder Huang. "So you are called Wu Yun. I've just heard from Elder Huang that you wanted to sell 2 bodies of Class 5 magical beasts. Is this the case?" Yulyan's beautiful eyes then swung toward Jian Chen to study his face for an answer. "Correct, that is the case." Jian Chen placed the space belt with the 2 Class 5 magical beasts on top of the table. Continuing to speak, he said, "Miss Yulyan, they are right here, so examine them if you will." Yulyan grabbed the space belt to begin inspecting the contents, but the moment she saw the corpses of the magical beasts inside, her face had a look of extreme shock. These are indeed Class 5 magical beasts. And if I'm not wrong, then this is the magical Skywing Cow and the Quick Cloud Beast. Yulyan commented. Jian Chen nodded his head. "Miss Yulyan, if I leave these 2 Class 5 magical beasts within the care of the auction house, will there be any problems?" Hearing that, Yulyan began to laugh gently as she placed the space belt back on the table. Her twin black pupils looked as if they could absorb the soul of any mortal, and had some sort of lovely charm to it as she stared at Jian Chen. "Of course there won't be a problem. For Sir to auction these 2 magical beasts within our auction house, this is simply too rare of an event. This would surely be a good thing for our auction house, so I can exempt Sir from the service fee for this. In the case that the auction house successfully sells the magical beasts, Then Sir will receive 100% of the profits, and our auction house will not receive any of it. Jian Chen didn't care at all for the service fee, but he cupped his hands in respect nonetheless. Of course, if Sir were to bring out the Class 5 monster cores with the magical beasts, then our Heavenly Phoenix auction house can openly proclaim this and definitely bring in a higher price. Why don't you think this over for a moment? Yulyan continued to say. Jian Chen's face had a bitter smile as he said, Miss Yulyan, I am truly regretful, but those 2 Class 5 magical beasts were found by me on the Magical Beast Mountain Range. By the time I discovered their bodies, their monster cores were already gone, so thus I only have the bodies and not the cores. Oh, so that's the case? Yulyan didn't believe Jian Chen, but nevertheless smiled at him. Seeing this, Jian Chen's expression sunk as he spoke with a slightly unsatisfied face. Miss Yulyan, I've already said it, but it's up to you to believe it. Seeing the slightly angry look on Jian Chen's face, Yulyan had an apologetic look on her face and said, Sir Wu Yun, please do not take offense. This little girl was only asking, without any other purpose. Please do not misunderstand. Quickly taking out a piece of paper, she said, Sir Wu Yun, please sign your name here and give us the 2 Class 5 magical beasts so that the Heavenly Phoenix auction house can auction them. Does Sir have any further questions? I am already familiar with the rules of the auction house. Good. Then these 2 magical beasts will be temporarily given to you. If there are any problems that arise from this, then your auction house will take the blame. Sir Wu Yun, please rest assured. Our Heavenly Phoenix auction house must maintain our reputation. In the case a problem or loss happens, our Heavenly Phoenix auction house will take responsibility. Chapter 169. Eliminating danger. After that, Jian Chen and the manager of the Heavenly Phoenix auction house, Yulyan, went over a few things for the process of the auction house. After all that was done, Jian Chen left the Class 5 magical beasts with the auction house and left. Once Jian Chen had left the secret room, all that remained was the appraiser Elder Huang and the manager Yulyan. Closing the door to the room, Elder Huang returned to where he was just sitting and sat down once again. Staring at the space belt in Yulyan's hands, he finally said to her, Little Yulyan, do you think the Class 5 monster cores could be in Wu Yun's hands? Yulyan carefully caressed the space belt with the 2 Class 5 magical beasts with her jade-like fingers. Despite there being blood within it, she did not feel unwell or even loathe it even with her feminine personality. There's a good chance of that. Judging from these wounds, the magical beasts must have killed each other and had one person clean up at the end and extract the monster cores. So this person must not be all that strong and is vastly inferior to these 2 Class 5 magical beasts, otherwise he would have easily killed these 2 magical beasts without having so many messy wounds. Yulyan murmured. Yet, we cannot rule out the fact that he did not extract the Class 5 monster cores. The one called Wu Yun indeed came across the corpses, but the probability that he doesn't have the monster cores is low. Only those at the Earth or Heaven Saint Master level would not care for a Class 5 magical beast's body, but the monster cores were clearly not removed by such an expert. Hearing this, Elder Huang nodded his head and said, When you say it like that, then the 2 Class 5 monster cores are really on Wu Yun's body. Yes, that is the most likely situation. Yulyan nodded her head slowly. Forget it, whether or not the Class 5 monster cores are with Wu Yun are not of our concern. We just need to do what we are supposed to do as an auction house. Although a Class 5 monster core is very expensive, compared to our Heavenly Phoenix auction house's reputation, it is a negligible cost. Alright, Elder Huang, let's forget about the Class 5 monster core and do what is expected of us with peace of mind. To our Heavenly Phoenix auction house, this accidental discovery of the Class 5 magical beasts was an extremely rare occasion in the first place. That's why we must properly utilize this hard-to-come-by opportunity and increase our Heavenly Phoenix auction house's renown even more. Yes, I understand. Elder Huang responded. Furthermore, we must keep this matter with Wu Yun being the owner of the Class 5 magical beast a secret. We must not allow any news of this to be leaked out. Otherwise, it would not benefit our Heavenly Phoenix auction house at all. It would also have a huge impact on the reputation of our Heavenly Phoenix auction house. You can understand this much, right? Yulyan spoke gently, but the words she spoke contained a hint of iron to them, almost as if she was speaking like a commander. Yes, this elder understands. Elder Huang answered immediately. After leaving the Heavenly Phoenix auction house, Jian Chen walked into the crowded streets down a certain road. In the end, he had finally reached a small isolated alleyway. Seeing the rows of locked-up homes that were uninhabited, Jian Chen hesitated for a moment before taking out his light wind sword to cut down the chains and walking inside a room. The inside of the room was pitch black, so visibility was very poor. Yet Jian Chen could make out the simple layout of the furniture and a table that had a very visible layer of dust on top of it, indicating that no one had lived in this home for a very long time. Jian Chen looked around himself before immediately taking out a few things from his space belt to clear away the disguise on his face. Swapping out his old clothes for a new set of clothes and then changing his hairstyle, he destroyed any last trace and walked out of the wooden house into the alley. By the time Jian Chen had come into the line of sight of anyone else, he already had his original appearance. Even his attitude had made a change from his previous disguise. At this moment, even if Elder Huang or Yulyan were to look at Jian Chen, they would not be able to find a connection between Jian Chen and Wu Yun because the differences between the two were far too many. First, buying a detailed map of Phoenix City, Jian Chen had decided to walk toward the bustling Heavenly Phoenix auction house and stroll around. While Class 5 magical beasts may be a common sight in the more major cities, in a city like Phoenix City, this was an undeniable precious treasure. Jian Chen knew that selling a Class 5 magical beast would not be as easy as it should be, so he had to familiarize himself with the environment. In the case that something unexpected happened, he would at least have an escape route and wouldn't be flustered. For the entire afternoon, Jian Chen wandered around the area and traveled down every road and alleyway. It was only when it was night time that Jian Chen returned to the inn. After eating a simple meal, Jian Chen sat down on his bed in a cross-legged position and closed his eyes. But Jian Chen wasn't cultivating this time. Perhaps it was because he had gone up in strength far too fast, or maybe it was because he had used the monster course to cultivate too much. With his strength being at the peak Saint Master level, he was no longer able to use his strength as efficiently as he used to. With this, he wasn't able to utilize his fighting strength to his full potential or even as smoothly before. It wasn't an extremely serious problem, but then, Jian Chen knew that if he didn't resolve this problem soon, then it would definitely have a long-lasting effect on him. So in this moment, Jian Chen was not cultivating in fear of increasing his strength too fast. If he abused his cultivation speed, his control over his Saint Force would be too troublesome. So, before any defects formed in his cultivation, it would be best to resolve any dangers before such a thing could happen. Chapter 170. The sensation caused by the Class 5 magical beast, 1. For the entire night Jian Chen sat on his bed, and refined the Saint Force within his body endlessly, to ensure that he would be able to use it efficiently. He didn't dare to continue cultivating, in fear that the danger hidden in his body would become more predominant. The Saint Force within Jian Chen's body flowed around his meridians in a fixed pattern non-stop. As it flowed within his body, he could feel the control over his body constantly increasing. At the same time, the level of compatibility between his Saint Force and his body slowly increased. He also realized that while circulating his Saint Force, his blood was also doing the same. A few of the strange genetic factors in his blood began to accumulate and enter the various organs of his body. Those genetic factors were the anti-venom genes from the silver-striped golden snake. Although the anti-venom genes had fully integrated into his bloodstream earlier in the year, the blood was only starting to alter his organs. It would take a long time until the process was completed. Right now, the amount of anti-venom-filled blood had only changed a small part of his body. Previously, the 1000 immunity had only succeeded in a small amount by having his blood reproduce the anti-venom. It would only be when his entire body was altered, and had the anti-venom that the 1000 immunity would truly be completed. The night went by peacefully until morning came. When the sun rose, the Saint Force that Jian Chen had been circulating the whole night gathered continuously back into his dantian, finally forming the shape of a sword. Although the shape was still a bit blurry, it was still more distinct than it had been when Jian Chen broke through to the Saint Master level. Jian Chen left his room and went down to the tavern where he ordered a single dish of magical beast meat for breakfast. With his current strength, even if he went a day without eating, he wouldn't feel hungry at all. Although, having 3 square meals a day had already become a habit to Jian Chen, and he would always eat regularly unless there were some extraordinary circumstances. Other than that, he refused to not eat a meal. After all, eating a fine meal was one of life's simple but great pleasures. Since it was prime time to eat breakfast, the tavern had quickly filled up its tables. Many of the mercenaries were forming groups to sit together. They exchanged information of what they've heard and seen, filling the room with their clamor. Jian Chen sat by himself with a few other dishes on the table and enjoyed his meal while listening in on the other mercenaries. Hey fellow brothers! Today the Heavenly Phoenix auction house will start. Rumors say they will be auctioning off a Class 5 magical beast corpse. A blue-robed mercenary said. What? A Class 5 magical beast? Oh heavens, that's a beast that requires an Earth Saint Master to defeat at the very least. How does the Heavenly Phoenix auction house have one of those? Fellow, are you sure you're not tricking me? A person cried out in disbelief. The first one who spoke had a smile full of conviction. Fellow brothers, why don't we make a bet on it then? If the words I say are fake, then I will be the loser, but if my words end up to be true, then I win. How about it? Do you expect me to believe a Class 5 magical beast could possibly show up in a Class 2 city like Phoenix City? Fine. I'll call your bet. Another person called out. I've lived for 30 years and heard news of Class 5 magical beasts many times, yet I have never seen a Class 5 magical beast with my own eyes. Okay, I'll bet as well. 2 gold coins. In the case that the Heavenly Phoenix auction house really is selling a Class 5 magical beast, then consider it my loss of these 2 gold coins. A person at the table called out. The amount of chatter at the table was growing as it quickly attracted the attention of the nearby diners. Immediately a few other men walked on over to the table and greeted them respectfully. Fellow brothers, you've just said that the Heavenly Auction House is auctioning off a Class 5 magical beast. Is this piece of information verified? Hearing this, the youth that first mentioned the news laughed. Brother, it seems no one believes this information. Then why doesn't everyone bet on it? Is this not interesting enough for you? The person who had approached them hesitated before nodding. Fine. Then I shall bet 5 gold coins. If there really is a Class 5 magical beast being sold at the Heavenly Phoenix auction house, then these 5 gold coins are yours without any hard feelings. Okay, I'll also place a bet. I've been here in Phoenix City for 20 years already, but I've never seen a Class 5 magical beast appear in an auction. Actually, I've never even seen one before, so I don't even know what one would look like. Class 5 magical beasts normally appear in king cities. They rarely even show up in Class 1 cities. The information about a Class 5 magical beast showing up in a Class 2 city like Phoenix City is most likely false. Forget it, since everyone is so into it, I might as well bet. This news is definitely false. I'll add a bet as well. I say that the Class 5 magical beast could appear in some Class 1 city auction. That would at least be possible. However, appearing in a Class 2 city is clearly impossible. The discussion at the table quickly attracted the interest of everyone eating in the restaurant. They had all been lured by the topic of a Class 5 magical beast, and were all silently gambling with themselves about whether or not it was true. Jian Chen, who was slowly enjoying his food, smiled bitterly and shook his head at the actions of the people in the restaurant. At the moment, he was currently wondering whether bringing the 2 Class 5 magical beasts to a Class 2 city like Phoenix City to auction them off was a wise choice. However, Jian Chen understood very well that if he brought the Class 5 magical beast to a Class 1 city or the capital to auction off, he'd admittedly sell it for a high price. The problem was that the pressure he'd have to face would unfortunately be greater since the stronger experts were pretty much all gathered at these flourishing and fertile places. If someone from that type of place came looking to stir up trouble with him, he'd have a much harder time dealing with them. However, being in a second-class city like Phoenix City was a completely different story. In Phoenix City, Earth Saint Masters were extremely uncommon. Even if an Earth Saint Master class expert did approach him looking for trouble, it was likely that Jian Chen would be able to cope. It was unlikely that the opposite party would be able to pressure him to the point where he wouldn't be able to resist. It was precisely due to this reason that Jian Chen had decided to auction off the Class 5 magical beasts at Phoenix City. Just as the people in the restaurant were discussing the news about the Class 5 magical beast in a frenzy, the loud banging of a gong suddenly rang out from outside. Dong! Dong! Major news! Major news! The annual large-scale auction at the Heavenly Phoenix auction house after the 9th will be selling off 2 Class 5 magical beasts. This information made both the people on the street, as well as the originally incomparably lively restaurant dumbstruck. Everything went dead silent and everyone had expressions of disbelief on their faces. Class 5 magical beasts were really going to be sold in the Heavenly Phoenix auction house. Moreover, there wouldn't be just one available, but 2. Chapter 171. The Sensation Caused by the Class 5 Magical Beast, 2. The difference between a Class 4 and Class 5 magical beast was only one level, but there was a huge distinction between the two. Class 4 magical beasts weren't anything special on the Tianyuan continent, but a Class 5 magical beast was very precious. This was because a Class 5 magical beast was a great deal stronger than a Class 4 magical beast, which made them that much harder to capture or kill. Class 5 magical beasts were gifted with a certain level of intelligence. The 5th stage magical beasts were born with an advantage, in that their strength would be greater than their human counterparts of the same level. Thus, under a situation of a one-on-one, it would be very difficult for a human expert to kill a Class 5 magical beast. In addition to that, Class 5 magical beasts had an established hidden rule. If they fought and killed among themselves, other Class 5 magical beasts wouldn't interfere. However, once a human expert disturbed them, they would call upon each other and unify together to retaliate against the threat. That was why the body of a Class 5 magical beast was so rare. Jian Chen felt that the beating of the gong outside on the streets was unexpected. Although he knew that the Heavenly Phoenix auction house would announce the Class 5 magical beasts, he didn't think that they would announce it in such a manner. The sounds of the gong being beaten and firecrackers going off filled the streets. The declaration of the annual Heavenly Phoenix auction house was officialized. With this declaration outside, in less than half a day, the entire Phoenix City would know about the Class 5 magical beasts being sold at the auction. A Class 5 magical beast being sold in a Class 2 city was a rare event that shocked many people. Something like this was an unprecedented event for the Heavenly Phoenix auction house, and it could be said that they were sparing no expenses. Not only did the entire Phoenix City know about the Class 5 magical beast, but even the cities that were in the vicinity of Phoenix City knew. Sometime later, the news that the Heavenly Phoenix auction house would be auctioning a Class 5 magical beast had spread to 500 kilometers away. Soon enough, every influential power had heard about the Class 5 magical beasts and set off for Phoenix City. At the center of Phoenix City, there was a quiet mansion that towered over the others. By the gates of the mansion, 10 armored guards stood perfectly still like statues. On top of the gates was a board with the 3 words, City Lord's Mansion. Those golden words gave anyone reading it a feeling of power. This mansion was truly the mansion of the Lord of Phoenix City. Within the beautiful garden behind the mansion, a white-robed middle-aged man was practicing his martial arts with a giant blade. His movements were quick and fluid as he moved around the flower garden. His blade danced around and left shadow trails as each swing filled the air. With how fast the blade was traveling, it was almost impossible to catch the blade's exact position as a large amount of Saint force filled the air as well. A moment later, an elderly housekeeper walked forward and watched the man in the rose garden practice his martial arts. "My lord, some news just came in. There will be 2 Class 5 magical beasts auctioned off at the annual Heavenly Phoenix auction house." "What? A Class 5 magical beast?" The blade in the middle-aged man's hand suddenly stopped as he turned around to look at the housekeeper with a stunned expression. "Housekeeper Cheng, what did you just say?" The housekeeper repeated his words, causing the middle-aged man's face to grow more and more shocked. With an expression full of disbelief, he asked with some doubt, "Housekeeper Cheng, the Heavenly Phoenix auction house is truly selling a Class 5 magical beast?" "My lord, that was the news given by the Heavenly Phoenix auction house themselves. Elder Xiao himself confirmed it as well, so this was absolutely true. For the past dozen years, I've only seen Class 5 magical beast in Phoenix City thrice. So hearing that a Class 5 magical beast is being sold in the auction is a first in many years." The middle-aged man furrowed his eyebrows in thought before asking, "Housekeeper Cheng, do you know who was responsible for these 2 Class 5 magical beasts? To have such precious cargo come into our Phoenix City is quite strange." Elder Xiao does not know. This answer was already anticipated by the middle-aged man, and his face revealed no surprise. Tilting his head for a moment, he said, "Housekeeper Cheng, go to the Heavenly Phoenix auction house and invite Boss Zhou Tian to the mansion." "Yes, my lord." In the residence of another place in Phoenix City, an elderly man with a scholarly air sat in his study reading a few books. At that moment, a knock was heard from the door. The man furrowed his eyebrows and said with some dissatisfaction, "Who is it? Did I not say that I am not to be disturbed while in the study?" "Father, it is your son with a report." "Come in then." The door opened, revealing a black-robed, middle-aged man who strolled in. "Father, some news just came in. A Class 5 magical beast will be auctioned off later at the Heavenly Phoenix auction house." "What? A Class 5 magical beast?" The elderly man was shocked. Immediately putting down the book in his hand, he turned away from his table to look at his son. Jian, is that true? Your son personally went to the Heavenly Phoenix auction house to confirm it. This is undeniably true. The middle-aged man nodded his head with certainty. A Class 5 magical beast is extremely uncommon in a Class 2 city. The Heavenly Phoenix auction house. Just where and how did they get a Class 5 magical beast? The elder murmured. There was a flash in his eyes as he looked at the middle-aged man. Jian, do you know if the Heavenly Phoenix auction house is selling the Class 5 monster core, a Class 5 magical beast cub, or the body of a Class 5 magical beast? Your son does not know. The Heavenly Phoenix auction house would not divulge that information. Only a few figures know that answer, and your son was unable to find out. Find it out immediately, the elder said. Yes. The news of the Class 5 magical beast had not only interested the people in Phoenix City, but the influential people of power in the area as well. For the next few days, a countless stream of people came into Phoenix City from every direction. Even more waiters and workers for the inns and restaurants hurried around as the buildings filled up completely. Along with the amount of guests, the prices of the inns rapidly soared to 10 times the usual price. At the same time, the security of the city was intensified as groups of soldiers could be seen patrolling around every area. Every so often, Jian Chen would observe the situation by the sidelines. The other few moments were spent cultivating. He was still hard at work trying to refine his saint force completely. Despite the price of the room going up by 10 times the original price, it was not an issue for Jian Chen. Chapter 172. The start of the auction. By this point, Phoenix City was a city full of the rich and the poor mixed together because of the news of the Class 5 beast. It had not only attracted the influential people from the city, but the outside powers as well. At the same time, the area around the Heavenly Phoenix auction house had become strange. Almost every day, various dressed-up people would linger around the auction house, and there would always be a pair of eyes closely watching people enter and exit the auction house. Although the Heavenly Phoenix auction house had tried to keep the matter of what exactly was being sold a secret, it was like trying to contain a fire with paper. After every influential power had looked into the matter, most of the details about the 2 Class 5 magical beasts and their origins had been found out by the day before the auction. There were 2 Class 5 magical beasts' bodies without their monster cores and a mysterious man that had to be an Earth Saint Master at the very least. This was all the information that every influential power could find out. Although this was something outside of their expectations, it didn't weaken their excitement over the Class 5 magical beasts. In a restaurant in Phoenix City, a few middle-aged men sat gathered together in a somewhat cramped room. Keep looking. I order everyone to look into this. We must find out who is responsible for these 2 Class 5 magical beasts. The Class 5 monster cores are definitely with him. Tomorrow when the auction starts, that man will definitely show up. So have someone look at anyone that enters the auction house closely. A white-robed, middle-aged man commanded. In a luxurious manner in Phoenix City, a dignified person looked down over the other middle-aged men and elders sitting at the table. Right now, the news of the Class 5 magical beast has already been confirmed. Although they're only the bodies without the monster cores, their prices will still be very high. It is said that eating the meat of a Class 5 magical beast is said to increase one's strength majorly. Even the blood of a Class 5 magical beast can strengthen the inner organs. Something like that could even benefit an Earth Saint Master. So, we definitely need to purchase those 2 Class 5 magical beasts at all costs, and even if we can't get both of them, then we need to get at least one. Also, the 2 Class 5 monster cores should still be on that person. Class 5 monster cores are even more precious than the bodies, and are very hard to come across in Phoenix City. Our Huangpu clan must obtain them at all costs. Tomorrow, you all will bring some men over and find out who is auctioning off the magical beasts. My lord, although the report said that the person who got the Class 5 magical beasts wasn't a strong individual, the fact that he was able to obtain them in the first place is proof that this situation isn't as simple as we thought. I am guessing that there is a high-level expert supporting him. Another white-haired elder said respectfully. Not possible. The standing middle-aged man said. The news we received was very clear-cut. These 2 Class 5 magical beasts died from battling each other before being collected. Judging from the man-made injuries inflicted onto the 2 when the monster cores were extracted, then that person isn't strong at all, so everyone's concerns aren't necessary. The Lord is truly wise. This old man was completely muddled. The elder cupped his hands together in respect and sat back down. Okay, time is cutting short. Next up, I would like to talk about tomorrow's rearrangements. In the pitch-dark night, the Phoenix City was fairly quiet. There was only a single group of guards patrolling the streets. Now that all sorts of influential powers were gathered, the city was a mixture of the strong and the weak, so the lord of the city had no choice but to have some guards patrol the city at night just to keep the peace. Hushed discussions and commands could be heard from all over Phoenix City. All of them were related to the Class 5 magical beasts and the mysterious person putting them up for auction. The night quickly passed. Dawn broke the dark skies from the horizon, marking the opening day of the Heavenly Phoenix auction, who had long since opened their gates. The giant gates had been decorated with ribbons and lanterns as both people and workers streamed in and out of the building. In the distance, quite a few dressed-up people stood there, waiting for the auction house to open. Today was the day of the annual auction at the Heavenly Phoenix Auction House. In the past, this had always been the busiest day for the Heavenly Phoenix Auction House, but today, they had the rare Class 5 magical beasts for sale. This year was even livelier than the years before. Before the day had been blessed by sunshine, there were already many people waiting by the gates. After dawn, the sun rose into the air and emitted a red glow that bathed the lands in its warm light. More and more people began to gather at the Heavenly Phoenix Auction House and filled up the nearby streets. Caravans found it extremely difficult to get by or find parking. Many people had been waiting for at least 2 hours before the ear-splitting sounds of a gong and firecrackers could be heard. This year's annual auction had finally begun. The auction this year wasn't like the past auctions. In the past, every person would have to buy an admission fee to participate, and this year was no exception in that regard. However, because of the Class 5 magical beasts, the admission fee this year was even more expensive than usual. Last year, the fee had been 5 gold coins, but this year, it was 10 times more expensive. The price was now 50 gold coins. Although this hike in prices made many people unhappy, it did not deter the people with money in their pockets. At the same time, it had gotten rid of the people who were merely there to watch the show and not buy anything. In this way, there was enough room for all the powers that were extremely interested in the Class 5 magical beasts after the gates opened up for the auction house. The people that already had tickets and had been waiting outside for a very long time began to enter through the entrance in a straight line. Jian Chen had already returned to the disguise of a middle-aged man that he had wore when he had first entered the Heavenly Phoenix auction house. Slipping into the crowd, he slowly began to walk into the auction house. As he reached the inner halls of the Heavenly Phoenix auction house, a large expansive area greeted his eyes. The space was filled with neat rows of seats for as far as the eye could see. It was clear that the number of seats had surpassed 1,000. Chapter 173. The auctioning of the Class 5 magical beast. The area had 2 stories worth of seats, and the 2 stories combined had a total of over 10,000 seats. Installed on the sides of every seat were dozens of private rooms for the honored guests, each separated by a tinted glass wall. From the inside they could still clearly see the outside, but no one on the outside could see what was happening on the inside. In the front was a 2-meter-tall stand where the items would be auctioned. At the moment, there was a huge piece of cloth covering the majority of the stands, making everyone unable to see what was hidden underneath. Finding a relatively isolated seat, Jian Chen calmly sat down and waited for the auction to start. People all around him were slowly starting to settle down as well. After some time, the auction hall had been completely filled up, with every last empty spot being crowded with people standing close together. Just as the final seats were taken and everyone had settled down, a golden eruption of fireworks exploded overhead. The concealed stand up in front slowly started to ascend into the air as the red cloth on it began to rise. The mysterious items concealed were slowly revealed to the entire audience. Standing on top of the stand was an elderly man around 60 years, and in front of him was a red-colored wooden table. The elder's eyes swept the audience as he cleared his throat and loudly announced, "Honored guests, I thank you all for participating in our Heavenly Phoenix Auction House's annual auction. I, Xueqi, will be the host for this year's auction, and so I hope everyone today will be able to see an item they will want to buy." The elder paused for a moment to clear his throat once more before continuing to speak. This year the Heavenly Phoenix Auction House has seen its busiest year. That is because this year we shall be auctioning off 2 precious items that our Heavenly Phoenix Auction House has already announced. What these items are, I am sure many people here are already aware of. So I, Elder Xiu, will not waste any more time describing them. Good. Then I declare that the auction is now officially starting. I didn't think that the host of the auction this year would have the strength of a saint master. Jian Chen muttered to himself. When the elder was speaking, he had used his saint force to magnify his voice so that everyone in the auction hall would be able to hear it. At the sound of the elder's words, 10 men suddenly walked toward the stand, encircling it. Their eyes stared coldly at the audience, as if showing off their positions as bodyguards. Afterward, a young, elegant woman slowly walked into view from behind the stand. A tray covered by a red cloth was lifted high into the air by her hand, as she skillfully walked toward the host. Carefully, she set down the tray on the table in front of the host. Honored guests, we shall now auction away the first item. What this hidden item is, I shall reveal it to you all. With that, the host extended his arm to grab the cloth and abruptly tore it away to reveal a palm-sized jade bottle. The very first item is the miraculous 100 herbs pill. For the honored guests who are unfamiliar with this item, it is a hard-to-come-by medicine that has the healing effect of 100 herbs. In a time of crisis, this medicine can be an additional safeguard. This bottle has 5 pills of the miraculous 100 herb pill and has a starting price of 10 purple coins. Every new call will add an additional purple coin minimum. You may begin bidding. 11 purple coins. 12 purple coins. 13 purple coins. 15 purple coins. Just as the host finished speaking, the people in the audience immediately started to fight over the miraculous 100 herb pill. This medicine had a very strong healing effect that could heal not only physical wounds, but internal injuries as well. Once this pill was eaten, the wounds would quickly stabilize themselves. Although the healing effect was still vastly inferior compared to when a Radiant Saint Master healed someone, this item was still readily welcomed by everyone. Radiant Saint Masters were a rare breed in the Tianyuan continent, and with such a majestic identity, only a few influential clans would be able to have a Radiant Saint Master render their services to them. Thus, herb-based medicines were well received within the Tianyuan continent. The higher effect they had on healing, the more expensive they became. As Jian Chen sat and watched the people around him fight for the medicine, there was a faint smile on his face. Although the miraculous 100 herb pill had a strong healing effect, he could control the Radiant Saint force just like a Radiant Saint Master, so this medicine was completely useless to him. After a fierce battle, the bottle of miraculous 100 herb pill was sold to the highest bidder for a price of 28 purple coins. People began to fight over item after item, especially for the ones that were rare and very hard to come by. Among all of these items, not a single one of them were of interest to Jian Chen. Quickly, noon came to the auction house as the auction house workers passed lunch to all of the participating guests. Although the auction itself did not cease and items continued to be sold. One by one, precious but strange treasures were sold off to the highest bidders, and soon, the auction was already reaching the ending point. Honored guests, the next item will be one of the last 2 items for this year, and is also one of the items everyone is most interested in. The host suddenly stopped speaking as his eyes swept over the audience. Almost as if everyone was one huge collective consciousness, the whole audience concentrated on the stand up front. The host began to smile. It can be said that these items are what everyone has been anticipating for a very long time. With that then I, Elder Xiu, will not speak anymore. Come, bring the item up. Just as he finished speaking, a few lumber workers came up onto the stall with a stretcher. As soon as they appeared, everyone in the audience zoomed in on the stretcher. There was a huge black cloth covering the stretcher, making it so that no one could see what was underneath it. However, there was a huge protrusion underneath the cloth that allowed many people to guess just what was being hidden. The men slowly lowered the stretcher onto the table and left the stand. Strolling toward the table, the host stooped over and placed a hand on the black cloth. Chapter 174. Fierce battle. Thus, everyone in the auction hall had their eyes glued to the black cloth-covered thing. While this was only one Class 5 magical beast body, it had still attracted the interest of many people. In their hearts they had thought that in their entire lives, this may be the only time they would be able to see a Class 5 magical beast. After all, Class 5 magical beasts weren't like Earth Saint Masters. In a few of the bustling cities, many of the bigger sects had a few Earth Saint Master experts. Class 5 magical beasts were also very different from humans. They would usually stick to their own areas instead of strolling out and about. Although, whenever they did come across any humans, those humans would surely die. So Class 5 magical beasts were beings that many weaker humans wouldn't want to be stuck with. As the host slowly took the black cloth away, the hidden object underneath was finally revealed to the eagerly anticipating crowd. Underneath was only the pitch-black colored body of a cow-like magical beast. A few of the closer and more observant guests could clearly see the small black wings on the back of the magical beast. This magical beast was just quietly lying on the stretcher, completely still. Its body was about 4-5 m long, and it looked like a small hill. Don't tell me that this is the Class 5 magical beast. Class 5 magical beasts actually look like this? It doesn't feel very different from some Class 1 or 2 magical beasts. Today is the day that I finally got to see a Class 5 magical beast. My trip was not in vain after all. These 50 gold coins weren't wasted. It really is a Class 5 magical beast's carcass. It seems like a magical sky-wing cow. After the Class 5 magical beast was revealed, the originally quiet auction house instantly buzzed to life. Everyone's gazes gathered on the Class 5 magical beast's body lying on the stage. The sounds of intense discussion and gasps of amazement overlapped ceaselessly. Among the people present, quite a few had lived for dozens of years, yet had never seen a Class 5 magical beast before now. Even though it was only a carcass, they already felt extremely fulfilled. Cough, cough. Suddenly, the sound of coughing spread throughout the entire auction house. With this noise, the loud and chaotic auction house gradually calmed down. The host standing on the stage smiled as he looked at the hundreds of thousands of people attending the auction and loudly declared, "Ladies and gentlemen, this magical beast carcass in front of me is the Class 5 magical beast magical sky-wing cow. Although it has already lost its monster core, it is still an expensive treasure. I'm sure that everyone sitting here knows that eating a Class 5 magical beast's meat for a long period of time will not only strengthen your body, but will also slightly improve your inner saint force. In addition, it is said that there is a chance that one can break through from the Great Saint Master level to the Earth Saint Master level." After hearing the host's last sentence, the originally calm auction house once again burst into a clamor. Everyone was staring intently at the Class 5 magical beast on the stage, filled with feelings of desire and greed. In the Tianyuan continent, such rumors did indeed state that consuming Class 5 magical beast meat over a long period of time would increase the chances of a Great Saint Master becoming an Earth Saint Master. Although an Earth Saint Master didn't seem to be much in name, it was actually an eminent and unapproachable existence to the thousands upon thousands of Great Saint Masters on the Tianyuan continent. The Earth Saint Master was only a single step away from the Great Saint Master, but this seemingly small gap blocked millions of people from progressing. There were many people on the Tianyuan continent who had lost their lives in attempt to break through and become an Earth Saint Master. This was because the requirement to advance was to smash one's own saint weapon into dust, and then rely on the ability to absorb large amounts of energy to refine each piece of the broken saint weapon over from the beginning, and finally recombine it. Only after completing this step could one successfully become an Earth Saint Master. However, saint weapons represented their owners. Once the saint weapon was damaged, the owner would also become injured through their link, and if a saint weapon was shattered, there would only be two results. The less severe result would be the user losing all of their saint force, and becoming a useless person that wasn't able to cultivate. The more severe result was directly sending their life to the underworld. For these reasons, less than 1% of the people on Tianyuan continent could successfully become Earth Saint Masters. If one failed, those that hadn't degenerated to becoming useless had died. This step alone blocked millions of Great Saint Masters, to the point where many of them that weren't willing to take the risk would eternally be stuck at their current realm until they died. This was why this Class 5 magical beast meat that could increase the chances of breaking through to Earth Saint Master by eating it made all of the people present beyond excited. At that moment, the host's voice resonated through the air once more. "Right now, the carcass of the Class 5 magical beast magical skywing cow will be auctioned. The starting bid is 5,000 purple coins. Every time a new bet is proposed, it must be at least 100 purple coins higher than the previous bid. I bid 6,000 purple coins." As soon as the host finished his declaration, a bid was immediately heard from one of the VIP rooms. 6,500 purple coins. A voice from another VIP room declared. 6,600 purple coins, 6,700 purple coins, 7,000 purple coins. One after another, frighteningly high bids rang out from the VIP rooms in the auction house. Currently, none of the people sitting in the general area of the auction house could interject. If one wanted to purchase the Class 5 magical beast, they not only had to have enough money, They also had to have a certain amount of strength. Otherwise, as soon as they left the auction house, the Class 5 magical beast would get stolen from them. That's why the people fighting over the Class 5 magical beast right now had to have reached a certain level of power, and were not at all concerned about it being stolen from them. 8,000 purple coins. The fight over the Class 5 magical beast was extremely intense. In just the blink of an eye, the price had already risen to the astronomical value of 8,000 purple coins. Moreover, it was still rising, without showing any signs of stopping. 8,500 purple coins. This Class 5 magical beast carcass will be our Yulon clan's. If anyone dares to fight us for it, they'll make the entire Yulon clan their enemy. A deep voice echoed from one of the VIP rooms. Its tone was extremely arrogant, and it was evident that the person was determined to win. Yulon clan, as in Fire Cloud City's Yulon clan? It's actually the Yulon clan. They're Fire Cloud City's #1 clan and are extremely powerful. Even the Fire Cloud City's lord is extremely courteous to the Yulon clan. I didn't think that they'd come to attend this event. Hearing the words Yulon clan, the auction house immediately buzzed with conversation. Although the Yulon clan was not a power from Phoenix City, their strength was great enough that they had quite a bit of influence in nearby areas as well. Haha, Yulon clan's people, you can't say that. This place is an auction house. No matter what, it will go to the highest bidder. Our Harido clan will bid 10,000 purple coins. This Class 5 magical beast will be ours for sure. A slightly aged voice rang out from the opposite VIP room in response to the Yulon clan member. Isn't the Harido clan a power from Lust City? That's at least 1,000 miles away from Phoenix City. Who would have thought they'd come here as well? The Harido clan is extremely low profile. Although they aren't even ranked top 10 in Lust City, no other power dares to offend them. Even the largest clan in Lust City, the Bai clan, doesn't dare to look down on the Harido clan. Yeah, I remember a few years back, one of the rich, spoiled sons of the Bai clan offended the young princess of the Harido clan, and the boy was painfully beaten by the princess bodyguards. After that, the Bai clan didn't dare to even fart in the Harido clan's presence. It's said that the Harido clan is actually the strongest clan in Lust City. However, because they're extremely low-key, they normally don't show themselves, to the point where some people have never even heard of them. After the Harido clan had spoken, the only sounds heard were of a few people discussing among themselves. For a while, nobody else bid. Even the previously determined Yulon clan had suddenly fallen mute in a period of hesitation. Lust City, Harido clan. Jian Chen's heart raced as he mentally took note of this clan. Based on the scene unfolding in front of him, he could already see that the Harido clan was quite skilled. After a moment of silence, an extremely energetic middle-aged man finally said from within another box. Haha, I didn't think that even the Harido clan would be so interested in this Class 5 magical beast. In that case, our Mutian clan won't enter this fight over this magical beast. I hope that the Harido clan will yield the next one to us. Haha, of course. Our Harido clan only needs one of them. We won't participate in the battle over the next one. The slightly aged voice from the Harido clan could be heard once more, this time with a hint of a smile in his tone. In that case, our Lu Yunjonga will also give the Harido clan some face, and give up on this Class 5 magical beast. Our Yang sect will also give up on it. After Harido clan's declaration, powers that weren't at all weak began to give up on the fight over the Class 5 magical beast one after another, giving the Harido clan some face. Hee hee, Elder Harido gives thanks to everyone. An elder from the Harido clan laughed gently. After that, the body of the magical Skywing cow was given to the Harido clan for the successful bid of 10,000 purple coins. We shall now proceed to auction the second Class 5 magical beast. Bring it up. The host cried out as another group of people carried another stretcher with cloth. This time, the host didn't waste any time and immediately tore off the black cloth. This magical beast is yet another Class 5 magical beast, the Quick Cloud Beast. At the same time, this is also the last item we shall be auctioning off, and the rules for this item will remain the same. The starting price is at 5,000 purple coins, with each minimal bid being 100 purple coins more. As soon as the host finished talking, a frightening amount of prices started to be called out from the audience. Perhaps it was because this was the last Class 5 magical beast, everyone started to battle it out even more intensely than before. Quickly, the original price of 5,000 had reached up to triple its amount. 16,000 purple coins, 17,000 purple coins, 20,000 purple coins. In the time it took to boil a cup of tea, the price of the quick cloud beast had reached a price of 20,000. Hearing the endlessly increasing price of purple coins, the seated Jian Chen couldn't help but let out a smile. Although the first class 5 magical beast had sold for 10,000 purple coins, which was a bit on the low side, this second class 5 magical beast had completely made up for the first loss. The Muqian clan bids 22,000 purple coins, the Yulan clan bids 23,000 purple coins, the Jialua clan bids 24,000 purple coins, the Flowing Cloud Sword Pavilion bids 25,000 purple coins, the Yang sect bids 26,000 purple coins, the Black Cloud School bids 27,000 purple coins. The prices continued to increase as many sides continued to fight bitterly over this class 5 magical beast, with each increasing price of 1,000 purple coins. Quickly, the class 5 magical beast had surpassed the 40,000 purple coin mark. The Yulan clan bids 45,000 purple coins. Immediately the Yulan clan offered the high price of 45,000 purple coins. Instantly, the entire auction house grew, still only to have a few people gasp in surprise. 45,000 purple coins was already far past something any major clan could afford. A class 5 magical beast was rarely seen, but those in the bigger cities would be able to see it more often. Even this price was far more than the usual selling price. After all, a quick cloud beast was only a normal class 5 magical beast and not one like the silver-striped golden snake. Before the auction house could resume its price war, another voice called out, "The Muqian clan bids 46,000 purple coins." The Muqian clan had one-upped the pressure on the Yulan clan. Bang! A sound came from the Muqian clan's box. Then suddenly, another voice came out from the Yulan clan box. There was a total of 5 middle-aged men and an elder sitting in the Yulan clan VIP box. One of the middle-aged men dressed in a white robe heavily slammed his fist on the wooden table in front of him, creating an indent in it. "Muqian clan, you dare to make life difficult for us, the Yulan clan? Fine, we'll make you regret it." The white-robed middle-aged man said through clenched teeth, a dark expression on his face. The other people had unsightly expressions on their faces. "If we continue fighting like this, I'm afraid that the class 5 magical beast's price will clamber up to a point that even we cannot reach," the elder said with a downcast expression. "What other choice do we have? This class 5 magical beast has attracted quite a few people. Now, all the powers still fighting over it aren't any weaker than our Yulan clan," the white-robed middle-aged man said in exasperation. "The Flowing Cloud Sword Pavilion bids 47,000 purple coins." At this moment, another voice declared a price. Seeing the price climb higher and higher, the expressions of the few people from the Yulan clan became more and more unsightly. The middle-aged man's eyes flashed fiercely, and he shouted, "Yulan clan bids 50,000 purple coins." Chapter 175, Battle of Tigers and Dragons, 50,000 purple coins. This Yulan clan is definitely the #1 clan in Firecloud City. Their financial strength is so sturdy. The Yulan clan really does have a lot of money to shell out 50,000 purple coins for a class 5 magical beast, despite the price far surpassing the standard price for one. As the Yulan clan gave another bid, the entire auction house suddenly descended into a buzz of chatter. Even Jian Chen had an unexpected look on his face. Indeed, a class 5 magical beast was a precious treasure, but even it had a maximum price. 50,000 purple coins was already a number that was far beyond the limit. From the Flowing Cloud Sword Pavilion box, a few white-robed men had stony looks on their faces as they sat down. There was a total of 8 men. Aside from a handsome 20-year-old and a petite flower-like woman, everyone else were in their middle ages. That 20-year-old delicate woman said, "This Yulan clan is really determined to win this class 5 magical beast. With a price this high, if we continue to fight for it, then our Flowing Cloud Sword Pavilion will end up paying most of our treasury for this class 5 magical beast." Her voice was like the song of a spiritual bird, as it was very pleasant to listen to. "I've heard that the lord of the Yulan clan is preparing to tackle the Earth Saint Master threshold. If he has the support of the class 5 magical beast, then despite it not giving him a definite success rate, it will at the very least improve his chances by a lot. To them, this class 5 magical beast is surely important." A middle-aged man replied, "My master has already been at the peak of the great Saint Master level for tens of years now. Since he isn't able to cross the threshold and make the breakthrough into the Earth Saint Master level, he can only linger about in his original realm of power. If we can obtain the class 5 magical beast, then my master will surely be able to make the breakthrough. In the case that my master does indeed become an Earth Saint Master, then our flowing cloud sword pavilion will surely grow stronger in power. The 20-year-old youth said. At the mention of his master, there was a hint of pride on his face. That was because his master was the lord of the flowing cloud sword pavilion. Another white-robed middle-aged man said, "What you said is correct. We too want to win over this Class 5 magical beast. While it would be easier to obtain a Class 5 magical beast in a king city, the nearest king city to our location is too far away for us to make the trip undisturbed. Even if we were to obtain a Class 5 magical beast there, transporting it out of the king city would be a challenge of its own. That would be no good. We would be attacked there for it. The best choice for us is to get the one right in front of us." With that said, another middle-aged man spoke with a grim face. "Vice Pavilion Lord, do you think we should continue bidding for this then?" The man hesitated as he listened to the man before nodding his head. "The Flowing Cloud Sword Pavilion bids 55,000 purple coins." With that said, everyone in the auction hall gasped. Suddenly, another voice cried out with angry over the gasps of the audience. The Yulon clan bid 60,000 purple coins. Hearing the newest price, a few of the men within the Flowing Cloud Sword Pavilion had ugly expressions on their faces. 65,000 purple coins. In the short moment of silence, the Vice Pavilion Lord spoke out a higher price. By now, many of the influential powers had already long since pulled out of the struggle for the Class 5 magical beast. There was only the Yulon clan and the Flowing Cloud Sword Pavilion left to fight for it. Bang! From the Yulon clan's box, the sounds of a fist slamming into a table could be heard as the Yulon clan was infuriated by the other side's actions. Just as quickly as the sound came, the auction hall grew silent as everyone looked toward the Yulon clan box. Flowing Cloud Sword Pavilion, this Class 5 magical beast is needed by our Yulon clan. Would it be too much to ask for you to hand it over? After this, the Yulon clan will offer our thanks. An elderly voice came from the box. There was an undeniably angry voice that couldn't be hidden at all. My apologies, but our Flowing Cloud Sword Pavilion is also in need of this Class 5 magical beast. If you can increase the price beyond our amount, then we will give it up. An elderly voice came from the Flowing Cloud Sword Pavilion box. The voice wasn't hard to hear, so everyone knew it was the vice leader of the Flowing Cloud Sword Pavilion. Good, Flowing Cloud Sword Pavilion, our Yulon clan will remember this. 70,000 purple coins. The Yulon clan elder gnashed his teeth as he called out a price. This time, the Flowing Cloud Sword Pavilion didn't call out a price. After waiting for a few more seconds, the host on the stand finally spoke out. This Class 5 Quick Cloud Beast has been offered to the Yulon clan for 70,000 purple coins. Does anyone wish to bid even higher? The entire 10,000 people in the audience all were quiet. After waiting a few more moments, the host didn't hear any more prices, so he said, "Going once for 70,000 purple coins to the Yulon clan, inside the Flowing Cloud Sword Pavilion. Vice Pavilion Lord, the Yulon clan has a considerable amount of power within Fire Cloud City, but our Flowing Cloud Sword Pavilion isn't any weaker than they are. We shouldn't give up on this Class 5 magical beast. Phoenix City isn't too far away from our Flowing Cloud Sword Pavilion, and even with us requiring plenty of security to transport it back, this is a hard-to-come-by opportunity." A middle-aged man said. "Hey hi." Hearing this, the vice leader let out a breath of air. "We aren't afraid of the Yulon clan, but this Class 5 magical beast has already far surpassed what price we could manage to support. Our Flowing Cloud Sword Pavilion isn't as rich as the Yulon clan. And even if we were to buy the Class 5 magical beast, then our Flowing Cloud Sword Pavilion would be in dire straits financially, which would not be favorable to us. Could it be with such a good opportunity, we are giving it up?" A youth lamented. "There's no other choice than to renounce it. Even if we obtain the Class 5 magical beast, it does not mean the Pavilion Lord would be able to make the breakthrough. In the case that he fails, then our Flowing Cloud Sword Pavilion would suffer tremendous damages that we can't afford to lose," the vice leader said. Hearing this, everyone could only nod their heads in silence. Making a breakthrough from a Great Saint Master to an Earth Saint Master was indescribably hard. Even with the help of Class 5 magical beast meat, the success rate was not 100%. In the case that it failed, the person would become nothing more than a cripple who would be better off dead. Going twice to the Yulon clan for 70,000 purple coins, are there any more takers? Going thrice to the Yulon clan for dash. 1 moment. Chapter 176. Gray-robed man, I bid 100,000 purple coins. A deep-sounding voice suddenly called out from the middle of the auction hall. Although the voice wasn't that loud, everyone in the auction hall clearly heard it. Hearing the price of 100,000 purple coins, everyone in the auction hall became stunned. Not just them, but even the Yulon clan members inside their box had looks of disbelief on their faces. 100,000 purple coins. The Class 5 magical beast was a treasure, but they weren't so precious to be priceless. 70,000 purple coins was already considered expensive for a Class 5 magical beast, but 100,000 purple coins was extremely past what the proper price should be. The entire auction hall grew extremely quiet as the price of 100,000 purple coins were called out. In this silence, if a silver needle were to be dropped, then its echoes would be heard by everyone clearly. Jian Chen, who was sitting down in a corner, was startled at the price, but he was also very happy. Since he was the seller, he had naturally wanted his items to sell for as high as possible. For the price to shoot straight to 100,000 purple coins from 70,000, Jian Chen had not expected that. What surprised him even more was that the person who had just called out the newest price was sitting in a private box not too far away from him. Jian Chen slowly turned his head toward the source of the sound only to see a gray-robed man. He was an elderly man who looked to be around his 60s. His black hair grew around his head like a flower which accented his wrinkled face. The entire auction hall was still quiet for a few more seconds before instantly exploding into chatter. Everyone couldn't help but look at the person who called out the price, but only a handful of people knew where that person was in the audience. Even the host had been startled by this huge price and had to take a moment to regain himself. His face shook along with his voice as he said, 100,000 purple coins. 100,000 purple coins. Someone has offered 100,000 purple coins. Does anyone wish to beat that price? Within the Yulon clan box, a few of the members had ashen faces. Not a single one of them said a word as they were too shocked at the high price. 100,000 purple coins. Going once. Are there any higher bids? 100,000 purple coins going twice. 100,000 purple coins going thrice. Sold. The auctioneer fiercely swung down his wooden mallet. The second Class 5 magical beast, the Quick Cloud Beast, was finally bought for 100,000 purple coins. Alright, this auction will now officially come to a close. Thank you everyone for attending. A year from today, we will meet together again. I'd like to now invite the guests that purchased items to come to backstage and retrieve them. The auctioneer Gu Rong gave a brilliant smile. He had already directed the auctions at Heavenly Phoenix Auction House for dozens of years, but this was the grandest one he had ever conducted. After all, an item worth 100,000 purple coins had been sold by him. This was definitely a supreme honor for an auctioneer. After the auction ended, the people that had purchased items left their seats and began to head toward the backstage to exchange the appropriate amount of money for their items. Jian Chen hesitated for a bit, then stood up as well, and began to walk toward the backstage. The money he gained from auctioning off the two Class 5 magical beasts also had to be retrieved from back there. By the time Jian Chen arrived behind the stage, the place was already filled with people. This was where everyone picked up the things they had purchased. Hundreds of people were alertly and quietly lined up, their hands holding a small card that the auction house had specially issued. Honored Wu Yun, Manager Yulyan is awaiting for you in the guest room. Please follow me. At that moment, an elder voice rang out from Jian Chen's side. It was the Heavenly Phoenix Auction House's appraiser, Elder Huang Lao. Jian Chen's appearance was still that of the middle-aged male, so Elder Huang recognized him immediately. Amen. Then I'll have to ask Elder Huang to lead the way. Jian Chen politely replied with a smile. Elder Huang didn't waste any time speaking, and immediately turned around to walk inside. Jian Chen followed closely behind. Before Jian Chen had gotten very far, he suddenly stopped walking and turned around to look back at the door he had just come through. Two people wearing gray robes were strolling over from that door, side by side. One of them was an elder, the other a middle-aged man. The elder was the one that had offered 100,000 purple coins to purchase the Class 5 magical beast, the Quick Cloud Beast. Esteemed guests, please come with me. A staff member welcomed them as soon as the two men appeared. Lead the way, the elder said indifferently. Afterward, they followed behind the staff member toward the staircase to the second floor. Freeze! A loud shout suddenly rang out. A few middle-aged men aggressively rushed over from the door, surrounding the gray-robed men. This scene attracted the attentions of all the people engaging in item transactions. They all turned around to closely watch the scene unfolding, as if they were engrossed in watching some play. The staff member's expression didn't waver. He had witnessed this type of scene multiple times. In a reconciling tone he said, "Honored guests, this is Heavenly Phoenix Auction H. Get out of the way." Before the staff member had even finished speaking, he was fiercely pushed back by one of the men. His arm so forceful that it directly sent the staff member flying back 10 meters, before crashing hard into the wall with a bang. The staff member's head collided into the hard wall, causing him to directly lose consciousness. The wall also now sported traces of fresh blood. Jian Chen's expression shifted at this scene, and a hint of a powerful murderous aura flashed from his eyes. He really couldn't bear to watch these people's barbaric and unreasonable actions. However, he didn't blindly rush into the fight, since he knew that going in now wouldn't be favorable to him. There were surely many people that had heard the news about the Class 5 monster cores. Seeing the staff members' removal from the stage, the two gray-robed men furrowed their brows. Without letting them say anything, the middle-aged man that had pushed the staff member pointed his sharp gaze at the elder and asked, "Are you the one that bought the Class 5 magical beast for 100,000 purple coins?" Chapter 177. Earth Saint Master. Hearing the middle-aged man, everyone's heart jumped for a brief second. Staring slack-jawed at the gray-robed man, none of them had thought that the person who had spent 100,000 purple coins on a simple Class 5 magical beast would be this ordinary-looking elder in front of them. The gray-robed man laughed. "Correct, I am indeed the buyer," with a tone of indifference. Hearing this, the middle-aged man who spoke earlier and a happy look on his face. Staring him down to measure the elder's strength, he said, Good. To go against my Yulan clan. But what an impatient movement you've made. Be smart and hand over the Class 5 magical beast, otherwise, you won't be at ease." So these people are a part of the Yulan clan. To think that they are that arrogant to bring people into the auction house do however they please. Seeing how rampant these Yulan clan members were, Jian Chen furrowed his eyebrows together in thought. The gray-robed elder and the man next to him looked at each other with a small trace of a smile. Then the elder's indifferent face gradually grew colder before turning to the middle-aged man in front of him. "The Yulan clan isn't anything in my eyes, scram. Are you looking for death? Seeing how difficult you're being, you're an old fool for not obeying." The Yulan clan member grew furious as he flew toward the elderly man with his arm outstretched. The moment the middle-aged man reached out with his hand, his eyes widened abruptly as he felt the palm of the elder's hands wrap around his neck. With no idea of when the elder had even reached him, he felt his throat tighten, causing him to choke. The middle-aged man's eyes turned wide as he looked down in disbelief at the hand holding him. There was shock as he hadn't noticed at all when the man had grabbed him by the throat. The elder continued to squeeze the man's neck with a small sneer on his face as he spoke. "Youngster, you are too rash in things. If you end up losing your life, do not blame anyone else." With that said, the elder swung his arm, and the heavy body of the man was suddenly flung to the far side as if he was no heavier than a chick. Slamming into a wall, the amount of force put into the throw caused the wall to shake. With this sudden and unexpected development, the other Yulan members were stunned. Seeing their member suddenly flung against the wall, a few of them had grew white in the face. Taking out their saint weapons, they all charged with some hesitation at the elder. "Humph! You overestimate yourselves." The gray-robed elder snorted with a cold gleam in his eyes. A bright red glow appeared within his right hand as the temperature in the room suddenly increased. With the middle-aged men coming at him, the fiery glow in his hand suddenly scattered in every direction as if a shooting star with sparks was flying out from his palm and struck every single saint weapon aimed at him. Ding 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 ding. Just as the sparks and saint weapons collided, a crisp sound was heard as the saint weapons from the Yulan clan side suddenly snapped in two. PFT. The men suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood as if they had just been struck heavily. Taking a few steps back, their faces had instantly grew white without a single trace of blood. While a small amount of them were standing unsteadily, a moment later they immediately fell to the floor without getting back up. Seeing these people have their saint weapons broken, the onlookers had a look of joy on their faces. In their hearts, they all understood that these incomparably arrogant Yulan clan members were utterly finished. Even if they somehow survived, they would fall to the lowest dregs of people on the Tianyuan continent, cripples. However, all of the people there were even more amazed at the overwhelming strength of this elder. With the snap of a finger, he had broken the saint weapons of these strong men. With such a strong attack, just what level of strength had he achieved? Little master, for these types of people, handing them over to Elder Xiao will be enough. There is no need to get involved personally. A dim glow returned to the elder's eyes as he turned toward the middle-aged man to his side with a respectful tone. The middle-aged man simply let his arms fall back down as he walked over to the unconscious men and spoke indifferently. I cannot stand these people. This will be their punishment to see if they can survive this. Let's see how they will fare with their luck. For the tiny Yulon clan to be crazy to this extent, humph. Saying this, he squatted down to where the worker who was first knocked down to look at his wounds. These are only some small superficial wounds, nothing serious. After a basic look over, the middle-aged man let out a breath in relief as he took out a ring hidden within his sleeves and placed it on his finger. Bringing out some medicine from his space ring, he began to dab it onto the back of the man's head. Seeing the middle-aged man's current action, the gray-robed elder could only shake his head. This young master of his was ruthless to his enemies, but honest and kind to any other regular person. This type of attitude wasn't something he saw often enough. For the Yulon clan to do something like this, they are looking for disaster. Elder Huang sighed before turning back to Jian Chen. Honored Wu Yun, please follow me. Jian Chen nodded his head as he looked at the two gray-robed men before following Elder Huang out of the area. In his heart, he was not as calm as he was on the outside. I didn't think these two men would unexpectedly be such profound experts. If my estimations aren't off, then even that other middle-aged man was also an Earth Saint Master. Jian Chen followed behind Elder Huang through to the second floor of the auction house before entering a more elegant-looking room. After entering the guest room, Jian Chen saw the manager of the Heavenly Phoenix auction house, Yulyan, who was sitting calmly by one of the tables. It looked as if she had been sitting there for some time already. Honored Wu Yun, after being gone for so long, you've finally returned. Yulyan had a gentle smile on her face. Jian Chen returned the laugh with no other word and sat down on the sofa in front of Yulyan. Elder Huang, who had led him to the room, didn't enter it, and instead closed the door and left. Chapter 178. Incoming trouble. Seeing the mature charm of Yulyan, Jian Chen still maintained a calm and tranquil feeling in his heart. Manager Yulyan, now that the Class 5 magical beast has been sold, will the money be handed over to me? Yulyan laughed gently. Honored Wu Yun, please wait for a moment. While the Class 5 magical beast was indeed sold, the actual transaction will still need some time. Nodding his head, Jian Chen didn't say anything else and sat down to wait. He knew that the auction had only just finished. They would need to conduct the transactions between the bidder for each item. So he had to wait for the transactions to be finished before he could collect the money from the auction house. Seeing how absent-minded Jian Chen was, Yulyan furrowed her eyebrows. With her mature appearance and beautiful appeal, she had a look of dissatisfaction. After hesitating for a brief moment, she spoke softly. Honored Wu Yun, what part of the continent did you come from? Hearing this, Jian Chen laughed. This one was born in a faraway and isolated village with no name. Even if this one were to say the name of the village, Manager Yulyan won't know, so it's better to not say. After that, Yulyan continued to try and engage Jian Chen in conversation by asking questions about himself in order to try and establish some sort of information on him. However, Jian Chen wasn't an inexperienced youngster anymore. Although Yulyan had skillfully used her expertise with words to try and trap Jian Chen into letting some personal information slip out, every answer she received was not up to her satisfaction. Every single time Jian Chen had answered her, the information she had wanted to hear had never appeared. Whatever piece of information that seemed promising was actually useless. It seems this Wu Yun is not a simple person. Trying to find the information I want from his mouth is a difficult task. Yulyan felt a headache as she thought to herself. Seeing Yulyan have a small amount of anger appear on her face, Jian Chen laughed to himself secretly. Thump, thump, thump. At that moment, a series of knocks could be heard. Hearing this sound, Yulyan straightened in her seat and reached out to press an inconspicuous button on the sofa. The drawing room door silently opened. Outside it stood a charming-looking, 20-year-old girl wearing a uniform. Manager Yulyan, Elder Huang wanted me to give this space belt to you. The servant said to Yulyan in a low voice. Hand it over. Yes, ma'am. The servant entered the drawing room and handed Yelyan the space belt. Her gaze lingered on Jian Chen's face for a bit before she retreated back out of the room. Yelyan inspected the items contained in the space belt, then gently placed it down on the table as she smiled. Mr. Wu Yun, the total amount of 110,000 purple coins that you earned from selling the Class 5 magical beasts is all in there. You can check yourself. Jian Chen took the space belt and inspected its contents. 11 neat piles of glittering purple coins could be seen inside the space belt. With each pile containing exactly 10,000, 11 piles gave an exact total of 110,000 purple coins. Having obtained his money, Jian Chen had no intention to stay any longer. He stood up from the sofa and gestured politely at Yelyan. Manager Yelyan, if there is nothing else, then I will bid farewell. With this, he turned around and began to head toward the door. Mr. Wu Yun, please wait for a bit. Yelyan suddenly called out to Jian Chen. Jian Chen stopped in his tracks and turned around to look at Yelyan. Manager Yelyan, could it be that you have something more to tell me? He asked flatly. Yelyan hesitated for a bit before saying, Mr. Wu Yun, if you have a Class 5 monster core, then our Heavenly Phoenix auction house is willing to purchase it for any price you want. In addition, we can also keep it a secret. There's no harm in considering this offer. Jian Chen smiled apologetically. I'm really sorry, Manager Yelyan. I do not possess a Class 5 monster core. Without waiting for her to reply, Jian Chen opened the door and left. Watching Jian Chen disappear from her sight, Yelyan sighed and said, I was originally just trying to give you a warning. Since you're in such a hurry to leave, I can't be bothered to say it anymore. The major powers that came this time are rather complicated. Whether or not you can survive this crisis will depend on your strength. After he left the Heavenly Phoenix auction house, Jian Chen stood there in front of the entrance and scanned his surroundings. As expected, there were many traces of suspicious people surrounding him. Jian Chen didn't pause for long, and began to walk at a normal pace toward a crowded street. However, before he could get very far, his expression suddenly changed. Using his powerful spirit's acute perceptive abilities, he could clearly sense hundreds of gazes coming from all directions at him. Jian Chen's heart sank as he realized that he was at a slight disadvantage. Could it be that those powers have already figured out that I was the one that auctioned off the 2 Class 5 magical beasts? Or maybe the Heavenly Phoenix auction house revealed my identity. Although he realized that the situation wasn't really in his favor, Jian Chen's expression remained calm. He maintained his normal pace, as if there was absolutely nothing wrong with the situation, and continued to head toward the bustling street. As Jian Chen left the auction house, some of the people spread around the area began to leave their positions and follow closely behind Jian Chen. Sensing the movements of the people behind him, Jian Chen couldn't help but sneer. The hot blood that had been silent within him for so long began to boil once more. Ever since he had reached the peak Saint Master level, Jian Chen hadn't once fought against a person. He really wanted to experiment and see how many of his attacks a great Saint Master would be able to endure now that he was a peak Saint Master. Sire, please stop. At that moment, a few middle-aged men wearing black suddenly blocked Jian Chen's path. Jian Chen stopped in his tracks and indifferently looked at the middle-aged men. Gentlemen, do you have any business with me? One of the men smiled and said, We are members of Phoenix City's Haiming clan. Sire, our Haiming clan has no ill intentions toward you. We would only like to invite you to become our Haiming clan's guest. Haiming clan. Hearing this, Jian Chen's heart skipped a beat. During his past few days at Phoenix City, he had definitely heard of this clan before. They were a power native to Phoenix City, and were strong enough to be one of the 3 great clans here. I thank Haiming clan for their invitation, but I still have things I must do, so I really cannot become your guest. Jian Chen tactfully refused. The clansman's expressions didn't change at this response. The one that had first spoken continued, Mr. Wu Yun, there are quite a few powers that know you now. Your current circumstances are extremely bleak. We, the Haiming clan, are the only ones that can save you. Please consider our offer. Chapter 179. Caught in a siege. There was a look of joy on the man's eye as he heard Jian Chen's response. This phrase was something he had long since been expecting to hear. He had wanted Jian Chen to obediently follow them back to the Haiming clan, but this desire wasn't shown on his face. Come with us back to the Haiming clan immediately. Otherwise, when all of the experts arrive by nightfall, even the Haiming clan will be powerless to help you. A nearly undetectable glint of ridicule flashed through Jian Chen's eyes as he replied. Could it be that if I were to come back with you to the Haiming clan, then the Hemming clan would definitely save me? Did you not just say that there were many influential powers after me? Could it be that the Haiming clan is able to withstand the assault of attacks from every direction? The man laughed confidently, of course. While I admit that the powers after you are indeed strong and can almost compete on the same level as our Haiming clan, but don't you forget that our Haiming clan is strong enough to be the local power of Phoenix City. Also, the Haiming clan has secretly joined with a few other clans, so if you agree to cooperate with us, then you will be safe from the other powers. Oh, so it was like that? Jian Chen nodded his head as if he had suddenly realized something. Come quickly with me then. The night is quickly approaching. Our men can only hold them off for a small moment. If we take too long, then the situation will become drastic. Believing Jian Chen had already agreed to return to the Haiming clan, the man began to run off in a direction. However, before he could get too far, he immediately stopped and turned around to look at the non-moving Jian Chen with furrowed eyebrows. Why aren't you moving? Jian Chen had some doubt on his face. Where to? Hearing Jian Chen, the man felt fear in his heart as he realized this wouldn't go as smoothly as he thought. Where else? Of course we are going back to the Haiming clan, or did you want to die somewhere else? But, I never said I would go with you. Jian Chen spoke with no emotion. The faces of every Haiming clan member changed abruptly as the head of the group also had a dark expression on his face as he stared at Jian Chen coldly. Wu Yun, are you playing with us? Jian Chen laughed. I'm not playing with you. Did you hear me say that I would head back to the Haiming clan with you? The middle-aged man let out a breath of air before taking in another deep breath as his glare turned malicious. Laughing angrily, he said, Good. Very good. Wu Yun, you've refused to drink a cup in toast, so you will instead drink a cup in defeat. Don't blame us for being impolite. With that, the middle-aged man charged at Jian Chen. Jian Chen's eyes flashed coldly as he brought out his own personal saint weapon. Quickly a thin and slender silver sword appeared in his right hand. Against these Haiming clan members, Jian Chen could tell that the difference between their strengths was as clear as day. The middle-aged man that had spoken out to him first was a primary great saint master, and the other men with him were only at the peak saint master level. A display of strength like this was not a threat at all to Jian Chen. Seeing the men charge at him, Jian Chen's light wind sword began to emit a hazy glow over its edges as a sign of the sword chi sharpening the sword. Then, with a single thrust, an extremely loud sound echoed through the streets that shook even the buildings. Haha, Haiming clansmen, your movements are truly fast. Suddenly, an extremely intense amount of sword chi rose up and shot toward the middle-aged man. With this sudden change, the man's face grew extremely serious as he felt the strong amount of sword chi emanating from the object flying at him. With a mental sigh to himself, his heart knew that the chance to capture Jian Chen had been lost. With a grunting sound, a strong amount of saint force filled his hands as a two-handed sword appeared. He used it to swing down at the speeding sword chi flying toward him. The moment Jian Chen saw that sword, his legs tapped against the ground as he retreated backward. Bang! Just as Jian Chen retreated, a large amount of energy smashed into the ground below and kicked up a strong gale of dust and rubble. The sounds of devastation echoed in every direction as even the nearby shops had been hit by the shockwave. The fortunate bystanders on the streets that weren't hit immediately jumped away from the area with no hesitation. With how common wars were in the Tianyuan continent, this event was nothing new to anyone, so the bystanders did not have any looks of fear or even shock. After the shockwave had dissipated, the middle-aged man from the Haiming clan stood in his original position with a serious expression. At the same time, a group of people approached Jian Chen's direction from behind him. Even the tops of nearby buildings had many people leaping toward the commotion to get at Jian Chen. It took only a moment for the entire street to be filled with hundreds of people that formed an impenetrable crowd. Even the nearby rooftops were filled with people. Anyone unrelated to this matter should leave immediately. A voice suddenly called out, causing all bystanders to feel the need to leave the area. After that, the crowd formed an empty passageway for the bystanders to leave from quickly. Seeing the surrounding people outnumber him by 100 at the very least, Jian Chen's face finally grew more serious than usual. Among this group, he could feel that many of them were rather strong, while the others were at the very least at the Great Saint Master level. Chapter 180. Here is my offer at this moment. An elderly man wearing an expensive red robe examined the crowd of people around him before letting out a smile. How lively this area is. To have so many influential people in the vicinity. How rare indeed. Truly, this is a seldom seen view. This old man hasn't seen such a sight in many years. Humph, old man Yu Ping, you should have stayed behind with your Cheng clan. There was no need for you to come visit Phoenix City. Another black-haired elder stood on top of one of the rooftops. The elder named Yu Ping laughed coldly as he stared at the other crane-hairstyled elder and said, Huang Pingshu, for you to come to Phoenix City, could it be you wanted to block me from doing as I please? Humph, old devil Pingyu, I have not forgotten about that time 5 years ago. With this opportunity, why don't we end this once and for all? Huang Pingshu stared at the elder Pingyu and spoke in a cold tone that clearly expressed his killing intent. That's right, it's about time I repay the debt from 5 years ago. The red-robed elder spoke. A large amount of saint force gathered in his hand, quickly condensing into curved blade 33 meters long. By this point, both elders' attitudes had become serious. The middle-aged man by the red-robed elder walked to him and said, Honored Yu Ping, now is not the time to settle your grudges. It would be best to finish what is in front of us first before resolving the grievances between you two. The red-robed elder nodded his head. Whatever. Huang Pingshu, with this current situation, now isn't the time. Let us wait for this matter in front of us to be done first before we resolve our grievances. The other elder looked at Jian Chen briefly, knowing that now was the opportunity for something else before snorting. Then I'll let you off for now. At this moment, a group of people was traveling on the two sides of the streets. From their fast speed but relative pacing, anyone that saw them could see that they were a part of the same group. As that group grew closer, those men who were standing by the sides of the houses they walked past quickly let them pass. The men stopped at the side of a house with an even stare at Jian Chen, who was in the middle of the besiegement of men. This must be the Honorable Wu Yun. Jian Chen turned his head to see a white-robed, middle-aged man with only an inch of hair on his head and a scar on his face. Jian Chen said, Correct, I am Wu Yun. What made everyone here gather so many people to stop me? I don't know the reason. Haha, Honorable Wu Yun, this old man wants to ask. The two Class 5 magical beast bodies, were they not produced by you? The red-robed elder questioned. Jian Chen couldn't help but laugh faintly. I didn't think that a nameless person like me would garner the attention of so many influential people. However, your investigations are correct. The person who brought those two Class 5 magical beasts to the auction house was me. Despite having many people of power surrounding him, Jian Chen didn't have a single shred of fear on his face. In front of this 100 people encirclement, he was laughing as if nothing had happened. Honorable Wu Yun, this one here is the vice leader of the Flowing Cloud Sword Pavilion, Zhou Tong. Since you had the Class 5 magical beast bodies, then it can be assumed that you also have the Class 5 monster cores. Our Flowing Cloud Sword Pavilion is willing to offer a price of your satisfaction and buy this monster core. Would the Honorable Wu Yun agree? Of course, if the Honorable Wu Yun were to sell a Class 5 monster core, then our Flowing Cloud Sword Pavilion will become your friend. If you were to come across any problems, then our Flowing Cloud Sword Pavilion will definitely help you resolve it. Will the Honorable Wu Yun agree? Zhou Tong stood on the rooftops with a faint smile. After Zhou Tong had spoken, another dark-skinned and sturdy person spoke out. Honorable Wu Yun, I am from the Yang sect. I do not like coddling around, so I will speak bluntly. Of the two Class 5 monster cores in your hands, the Yang sect is willing to buy one of them. The price we offer will be to your satisfaction. But will the Honorable Wu Yun agree to sell one? Seeing these two major powers ask for the Class 5 monster cores, the other influential powers didn't wish to lag behind. Sire Wu Yun, we are from the Yulan clan. Although we are not considered as anything major on the Tianyuan continent, there isn't a single person that would not try to please our Yulan clan in Fire Cloud City. As long as the Honorable Wu Yun sells us a Class 5 monster core, then the Yulan clan can guarantee a comfortable stay within Fire Cloud City without anyone trying to cause trouble. A man in an expensive robe spoke out. Sire Wu Yun, I am from the Muqian clan. Sire Wu Yun, we are from the Kader clan. Every single person there began to open their mouths to buy a Class 5 monster core from Jian Chen. Seeing at least 10 sides of powers cry out, Jian Chen bitterly smiled. I am afraid to disappoint everyone, but I do not have any Class 5 monster cores. Although it was indeed I who brought these two Class 5 magical beasts to be sold, they were not killed by me. I merely found their bodies. Haha, the Honorable Wu Yun doesn't need to try to cover it up anymore. The body of a Class 5 magical beast is valuable enough that even a Heaven Saint Master wouldn't leave it behind. Moreover, we've already inspected the Class 5 magical beast bodies only to find that these two magical beasts had fought each other to death, and were then later found by a person. From the wounds, it was easy to tell that a man-made wound was done by a weaker person, who then tried to extract the monster core. This means that it is indeed the honored Wu Yun, without a doubt. An elder laughed, almost as if he was discussing the weather with some friends. That's right, Sire Wu Yun, we only wish to buy the Class 5 monster cores from you, not steal them. Even if you sell them to us, you won't lose out. These Class 5 monster cores aren't safe with you, and keeping them on you would surely bring about disaster. If you were to sell them to us, then you could earn a great sum of money to the point of not needing to worry about clothes or food anymore. Even then, you would be able to buy many monster cores to cultivate your own strength. Someday in the future, you could break through to become a great Saint Master, or even an Earth Saint Master. What have you to lose? Zhou Tong of the Flowing Cloud Sword Pavilion spoke out. You're tuning in to the Xueqi's Martial Arts Saga YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.